They want the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the teeth, don't they? Come on. Come on, we started, you know. Yes. Everybody else talks rubbish, so why can't I? That's what I say. That's the way I look at it. All right, then. Thank you for that, Councillor Passington, and good luck with that. Oh, come on, Councillor Rolfe. Yeah, it wasn't meant like that, but if you want to take offence, I'm more than happy for you to take offence, and we can talk about it later. So, all right then, disclosures of interest. Any disclosures of interest on Councillor Orcott, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have a pecuniary interest in item 6. I will be leaving the room as advised by a monitoring officer.
Okay, thank you for that. You will come back though, won't you, for the next item? Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that. Item 3 is to confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of August. Are members happy that I sign them later, that they are a true record? Councillor Hedges-Severin. Could you put your microphone on, please, Peter, please?
Sorry, Mr. Crump. I wasn't present at the last meeting.
Yes, you can still vote on numbers if you, yeah. Are members happy that are a true and fair record? Brilliant, thank you. Chairman's brief, no updates. As everything is on the agenda, as far as I can tell. Public participation. Not received any questions, so we'll move past public participation. And now we will move on to economy and tourism, to receive an update on economy and tourism with Shakespeare England and Stratford-on-Avon bid. Now, we've always got the dream team. We have got Ant and Deck. Today we've got Darren and Aaron. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming here today. And who wants to kick off first? And yeah, well, if you want, how would you like questions? Do you want to do your presentation and have questions at the end, or would you take questions when members feel free? What's your preferred method, please?
I'm happy either way. We have been sort of reduced to 5 minutes. I've probably got a lot more than that, so I'm going to very quickly go through my presentation. So I'm happy to go either way, but it might be better to have them at the end, given the speed that I'm going to rush through the presentation, potentially.
Members happy with that? Councillor Rolfe, please.
Are we going to have both of your presentations, one after the other, before questions? I think that would help.
That would be.
Thank you.
So who's going to be Ant and who's going to be Deck today, then?
Who's left and who's right? I think Darren's going to go first, but we'll just...
It's got to be A and D, so I guess I'm Deck, but I will go first.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So I am sharing my screen. Okay. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Darren Tosh. I'm the Operations and Marketing Director for Shakespeare England. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we do and who we are. Shakespeare England, we're a not-for-profit membership organisation recognised by Visit Britain as the official destination management organisation for South Warwickshire. So that is Stratford, Leamington, Kenilworth, Warwick and the surrounding towns and villages as well. Our main objective is to put South Warwickshire on the map, actively promoting what the region has to offer. Our aspiration is to attract more business and leisure visitors who stay longer, explore further and spend more, returning regularly and spreading the word about Warwickshire. We can very briefly touch on this. It's core to emphasise that we are not just Stratford-upon-Avon or Stratford-upon-Avon district, but we are also Warwick district as well. We do have some members outside of those regions as well, such as Bicester Village. We've got numerous members in Coventry as well. Our team, so we have what we say is 3.25 members of full-time staff. So I run the organisation. We've also got Vicky, who's Business Development Manager, Hannah, who's a content creator, and then Sian for 10 hours a week as a digital executive. As I say, we're a membership organisation. We have 4 levels of paid membership, bronze, silver, gold and strategic. We also have a free listings offering, which I think we'll be touching on later. And the benefits to our members are not exclusive but limited, but include website listings, opportunity to be part of familiarisation and trade trips, opportunity to be consumer and business trade shows, social media coverage. They're involved in press releases. We have quarterly tourism forums, research and intelligence reports, email newsletters, and general business support and resource. In terms of the types of businesses, this will come as no surprise, but our main members, 41% are visitor and leisure attractions. We have 34% that are hotel accommodation, 17% food and drinks, and then transport and retail makes up the rest. Again, this shouldn't come as a surprise. Whilst we represent the whole South Warwickshire region and beyond, the majority of our businesses are from the Stratford-on-Avon, 68%. We've got 17% in Warwick, 6% in Leamington, 9% in Kenilworth, and then there are a few others, as I mentioned. And then we have a number of different members, but basically from one-person businesses all the way up to sort of globally recognised brands. So these are just some of the bigger ones, including the Birthplace Trust and Royal Shakespeare Company. And then what we do, so in terms of marketing, we have ongoing marketing that runs all year round. But across that, we have a number of different campaigns across key sort of trading periods, such as summer, October, Halloween, half terms, and Christmas. Our overarching theme is around writing your own story in Shakespeare's England. So it's around delivering authentic sort of experiences, going off the script, if you like, to write your own story, off the beaten track experiences, and really sort of playing on that authenticity piece around the culture and history. Our website is optimized for the user, so we have lots of different category pages and listings, user-driven search. We have a What's On platform, which I'll touch on in a second. It's very much SEO-driven as well, so we've seen some really great growth across SEO across the last few years. And we also have featured advertising for those members who want it. In terms of the events portal, so the What's On, this is something that we launched last year in collaboration with the West Midlands Grove Company. So it's free for anybody to upload an event, and we're really trying to push this out at the moment. Again, we've seen exponential growth across this. So we've gone from sort of less than 100 events this time last year. Currently we've got over 250 on the site. And because we're using an events portal that is put together by the West Midlands Grove Company, there are other connected websites as well. So if you put an event onto the Shakespeare's England site, it will also be shared across Visit Warwickshire, Visit Coventry, Visit Birmingham, and other DMO sites across the region. In terms of our social media, so we post across all different channels. We have a number of different post types, and we have a full social media strategy that we work towards. I won't go into too much detail, but the figures over the last 12 months, you can see for yourself. Again, we've seen some real exponential growth. So we've grown our followers over the last 12 months by 60%, so we've just got just under 62,000. And then some of the really nice figures here that I've included. So we've had 707,000 engagements across social media in the last 12 months, so that's likes, comments, and shares. We've had over 15 million video views, so we've grown that in 12 months by over 330%, and then the reach has grown by over 152%. And if you just take these two figures, if you try and put it in sort of tangible terms, so the reach and the video views alone, all of our social media is organic, apart from when we get influencers in, but if we had paid for these, that's over £340,000 worth of advertising cost. We work with Palmer, our PR agency, and we've produced over 150 pieces of media coverage across the last 12 months, including some sort of big names there. In terms of travel trade, so we attend leisure, business and consumer travel trade shows to present different opportunities. We either go directly or with stand partners, so often our members will pay into the pot and come with us on some of these shows. And it's a real opportunity to meet with key travel trade decision makers. In terms of this year, so in January we were at Britain-on-Ireland Marketplace in London. At February we were at the Coach Tourism Association conference, and it was great because it was actually held in Stratford at the Crowne Plaza. In March we hosted a familiarisation visit from Germany, Austrian and Swiss buyers in collaboration with Visit Britain. In May, we were at Arabian Travel Market, and in November, we're going to China to run our own Shakespeare's England sales mission with partners, and then we're going to Shanghai with Visit Britain for their sales mission as well. Unfortunately, none of these trips were me, but our business development manager. We host quarterly tourism forums, so these are for members to come and hear about what's going on. We also invite guest speakers to present industry insights at those, and they're held across the region. We've done a lot of work this year around sustainability. So for the last sort of 3 years, we've been members or participants in the GDS Index, so it's Global Destination Sustainability Index, which is essentially a league table for cities around the world for how well they are doing across the sustainability piece. There's over 70 pieces of criteria, so it's quite a bit of work for us to do each year. This year we came 72nd, which might not sound that high, but actually for Stratford it's a really good result, and we improved over last year by 36%. So for the first 2 years we were kind of around the 90s, and this year we've seen a big improvement. I think that will improve as we go on, so the first 2 years it's difficult to gather that evidence because you're doing the sort of work. And a big part of our improvement has been around a launch of our 2-year Sustainable Tourism Action Plan. So there are 18 actions across the next 2 years across 3 key themes. So the environmental, social and economic impact of tourism. In terms of visitor numbers, so it's worth saying there's a 12-month lag in tourism figures. So these are pretty hot off the press actually. We've not done any PR around it yet, but we're speaking to our agency about it because we're really actually very happy with the figures that have come in this year. So these are the figures for Stratford-on-Avon district. In terms of day trips, we saw a big increase on versus last year, but I've also included the 2019 figures in there. So whenever anybody talks about tourism figures, they always talk about pre-COVID. And our target was to get back to pre-2019 or 2019 figures. So we've actually hit that probably a year earlier than we were expecting. And so we've seen growth in day trips in the Stratford-on-Avon region of around 8%. The GB average figure is a decrease of 12%. So we've seen some real positive numbers there. Overnight trips are slightly up for the region. Nights are down. And trips are down for the town, but actually the stay value has also seen an increase, so people are charging more for their stays essentially. And again, if you look at the GB figures, while Stratford-on-Avon has seen a 2% increase on 2023, overall across GB, that number is actually a decrease of 10%. Total value of tourism, we've seen an increase on 11%, and we're actually 4% up over 2019, and we've seen an increase in jobs across the region as well. So really positive figures for this year. And that is everything.
Thank you, Darren. Certainly a whistle stop. I'm sure we'll have quite a few questions for you in a bit. Aaron, please. Far away.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Darren. I'd like to introduce myself. So, Howard, have you got my slides available? We're going to get a moment. We're going to go back to pre-COVID now, or just in COVID, and we're going to have the next slide, please. So I'm Aaron Coursey, I'm the Business Improvement District Manager here in Stratford-upon-Avon. So I represent the not-for-profit Business Improvement District. We have 382 business members that are part of the levy and one at the moment additional levy payer who volunteers to pay. We are set up by a legitimate mandate through a ballot system, so we are now we're in year 2 of our 5-year term. I took over as bid manager 11 months ago, so we are nearly a year into my first year of tenure. And what I had to do when I started was look at the organisation of the bid and almost sort of do a reset. So within that first year, I have looked at how the bid is organised. We have recruited, so there's 2 of us now at the bids. There's myself and Georgia O'Connell, so we are an FTE of 2, looking after the annual budget of £400,000 of the business's money. So we work on behalf of the businesses, looking after the vibrancy and the vitality of Stratford-on-Avon. So overall, we want to enhance the vitality and the prosperity of Stratford-on-Avon, and I just stepped back and I looked at the organisation and looked at how we could deliver that over the next 3 years. So I reset, and then we are now looking at a more welcoming, vibrant, safe and kind Stratford-upon-Avon. And I just wanted to quickly introduce a little bit of placemaking into this presentation to basically set the scene for the next 3 years within the Business Improvement District. So if we have the next slide, please. So brief recap in 2024. So I wasn't here for most of that 2024, but we had the successful bid vote. We still continued to deliver on the business plan that was set by the businesses for the businesses, and Stratford District Council are within that levy payer. So we had the bid employee discount cards, social media sharing was still happening, the work with Shakespeare's England, the district was all continued. We also continued to run the Bard Watch scheme, Pub Watch, recruited myself as the new bid manager, and supported various projects throughout the town looking at that vibrancy and vitality. The footfall counters being one of them, and I'll mention those later when we talk about data. And we continue to support the events where possible, and running the Motor Festival, Food Festival, etc., and the Christmas light switch on, which we're looking forward to in November. If I can have the next slide, Howard. So a brief potted history of where we are as a business improvement district. Yes, we have a business plan, but however, what it all boils down to for the business improvement district is looking at the top 25 priorities that affect our high streets, our town centres, and Stratford-upon-Avon as a town centre and as a place. And we represent just the town centre. Those details up there on the slide are the things that we think about when supporting the businesses. Yes, we can talk about the individual hows and actions that we do for businesses, but it all boils down to making sure that we've got the right activity in the town centre. We can create an experience. We are very lucky in this town that 21 of those 25 points already have great things happening. We have a great accessibility. We have bus services. We do have car parking. We do have retail units, experiences. We're a small town centre that has a great walkability. So we have everything here in this town. It's about how we promote it in the best way possible. Next slide, please. So, potted history there. This is what we're currently dealing with, and we're dealing with this as a business improvement district, as a town, and as collaborative partners in this room, and everybody else that the bid and the district council works with on a daily basis. So we're looking at shopping locally. We have a disrupted visitor market, but it is coming back and it's changed back. We're looking at acceleration of online retail, and it's how we deal with that and the change that's happened. This is a 50-year cycle. Planning policy in the 70s created out-of-town shopping centres, and we're now dealing with what's going on in the general world. So next slide, please. This is where we're going. We have the future. Stratford-upon-Avon has to deal with the change that's happening and organise itself to make sure we are ready for that. There will be change, and units will have to change, services will have to change, and it's how we deal with that. So the bid is here to help with those changes and to be that point of reason between all the organisations in town and to help everybody. I can't see us having robots coming down the high street to deliver things, but it's the way of the world, and it's where we might be going. Next slide, please. So, started this year, I had 3 key deliverable targets within the bid. One was to continue to deliver those great quality events that we have in town, Motor Festival, Food Festival, and the Christmas light switch on. I've got a slide with a few photos in a second. I wanted to invigorate a central and inclusive, more collaborative website for town. The whole ethos behind the Business Improvement District is that we have to work in partnership with everybody. So actually, there was a fragmented website and online presence in the town. We're working with Shakespeare's England, with the District Council, thank you, with the Town Council, with various event organisers in town on how we can do that collaboratively, making sure we've got one place, one version of the truth. We are almost there. We're in the middle of the process as we speak, and by the end of this year, we will have a live website that is inclusive and open and shows parity to all businesses, not just bid businesses, and all organisations who can show what's on in town. And then deliver a uniform presence in town to bring back our street wardens and the uniformed presence we had in town before. And that has happened. That started in July, and hopefully people will have seen our wardens around town, and they've been very good at helping residents and businesses alike. They are a serviceful business, and they're popping in daily to see people. Next slide. You won't be able to read this, but the business plan is split into 6 key actionable activities. So we activate, and that is about creating those events in town. We've got a promotion section there, and that is where we're looking at the new website and splitting out the communications. The bid organisation is a business organisation for businesses, so we have 2 clear, distinct communication channels with our businesses and then with the public. Celebrating, we want to celebrate the town and work with as many people as possible to deliver other activities, other events, and that's how we work with the Literary Festival, Pursuits Festival, Town Council, that are delivering things in town. We are not the sole organiser of everything in town, but we want to embrace and work with as many people as possible to help that happen. Then we've got the second half of our business plan, which is about communicating, supporting and representing. And this is the real crux of that business support. This is where we're working with businesses, with the Growth Hub, with the Chamber to create those business support opportunities and ensure that those businesses have access to that training that's available. And thank you to the district and to the county councils for providing those business support services. Working with the ED team, the Economic Development team, in working on how they can support inward investment into Stratford, working with the empty units, working with the services we've got, community safety, working closely with the bid wardens, making sure that we are interconnected with the police and any intel that happens. And then finally there about representing, that's probably where we are at the moment. So as an organisation, we are waiting on bated breath for the 26th of November to see what central government is going to have in store for businesses and how then we can respond to what comes in on the 26th of November and work with the district council, the town council and the county council on how we make sure that happens locally. Very quick slide there, and as you can see, these are just a quick snapshot of the 3 major events in town. Food eating competitions, great market. 2 weekends ago with the food festival, we had 25,000 extra footfall into the town centre over that weekend, and the same figure for Motorfest. We had 25,000 extra people in Stratford over that weekend. Predominantly, the feedback has been positive on those events. We had very little feedback, negative feedback about issues of access, but we will work with as many people as possible to make sure when we put on those big events, we ensure that Park and Ride is open, town car parks are open, and that everybody can get into Stratford. Next slide. And you've seen the tourism figures that Darren has put in. Just wanted to say these are the ones for the town centre specifically. So these are Stratford-upon-Avon town centre figures. As you can see, we're delighted as well because the town centre itself is up 5% with its actual jobs that are supported in tourism. And then also the total value of tourism for just the town centre is £250 million, and that is up on the pre-COVID period, and we're also up year on year, 11%. So again, and due to the same figures, actually the number of trips and the overnight stays are down. However, the value of the trip, because in real terms, that's gone up. I think that's the last slide. Oh, the future. We've got 3 years. So as part of the bid business plan, we're going to look to work with all of the organisations on accrediting the town centre, so thinking about supporting the evening economy, making sure we've got the right offer here in town, continue to work with Shop Watch, Pub Watch and Bard Watch, making sure that we've got a safe and secure town, working with community safety and the police, and then delivering on some of those Stratford Town Strategic Partnership vision document actions that need to happen in the town, and the bid can help deliver some of them. Conscious of time.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's very illuminating. Lots of information there. It's almost like, yeah, what did the Romans do for us in the Monty Python sketch? It's what did bid do for us? That could be one of your strap lines in the future. So no, that's very good. Councillor Rolfe, I can see you're indicating.
Chair, I have one question for Darren and two for Aaron. Can I ask them all?
More than one for continuity, yeah. I mean, one after another, yeah.
One after.
You got that.
So, Darren, you mentioned an increase in jobs. What sort of industry are they in? Is it mainly the entertainment industry?
Actually, it's hard to say. We don't get that broken down into that sort of level of detail. I can go back and ask that question, but it's not given in the initial reports. It's never that level of detail. Anecdotally, we know that hotels have been struggling. So I would say, yes, it would likely be more in the entertainment sector, but yeah, I can find out those figures for you.
Thank you. Aaron, I have sent you a written question, but I have two. So the first question for you is part of the bid remit that went out to vote was that you had a promise of police rather than wardens. I'd quite like to know why wardens were chosen instead of police. And second question is your involvement with the Maybird and how you interact with the Maybird. I know your CCTV camera works and your Bard Watch works with the Maybird, but is the Maybird included in the bid remit? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. So first question there about the bid remit and the police that was in the bid business plan. As part of the work to look at what needed to be delivered for businesses, that line was in the business plan, but when we were looking at the tender process and we were looking at how we could best serve the businesses, we looked at an open tender for organisations to bid on delivering a service for businesses. So anyone could have bid on that process. We felt as a bid that the delivery of a warden service would actually create more opportunity and more interaction with businesses directly and give a better service to this town than a direct surface level agreement with the police. So actually, on a day-to-day basis, our bid wardens go in and see the businesses daily. We have, so far in August, I think there were just under 200 interactions directly with the wardens, walking in, talking to the business, talking about how they do business, talking about safety and security, talking about bids, events. So it gives us a much better service for the businesses, and ultimately they are the people that pay the bills.
Can I just have a very quick comeback on that one? So,
That's it, brilliant, thank you.
So, obviously, as a councillor, I hear the criticisms, and one of the criticisms was from certain people, and I think you know who those people are. Well, we were promised policemen. Did you go out to those businesses and say, this is what we'd prefer to do? Did you consult with them?
Were those criticisms from bid levy business payers? Because if I haven't seen them, and so I work for the bid businesses, and it's the bid businesses that we provide a service to. So, and the bid has that opportunity to decide on how it delivers on its business plan. And that is the best, well, we feel, and I feel as the bid manager, that is a better service that is being delivered to the businesses that pay the levies.
And I would agree.
Yeah.
So next question, Maybird.
And Maybird, so Maybird, as part of the business plan, are in one of the zones within the business plan. So the businesses within the Maybird Centre pay less in their levy than the town centre businesses pay, and that is part of the legal ballot that went out as part of the business plan. So the Maybird service, the Maybird receive safety and security services from the bid, so they get visits from the wardens go up. We work directly with community safety team, Sam and his team here, and CCTV on working with those businesses because they have a different type of need with shoplifting, safety and security, because it's a different way of committing those crimes up at the Maybird because of the layout and how it happens. So they work individually with all the businesses, and yes, they are included. They're included in Bard Watch. They're included in those conversations about safety and security.
Right, I've got a quick follow-up on that, and then I'll bring Councillor Littlewood. Just when the wardens are getting community intelligence feedback from the shops and people, etc. Is that feedback, community intelligence, passed on to the police, for example, in different ways? Well, we've got a bit of a spike hotspot in this area. I just wondered how that community intelligence is passed on, please.
Absolutely. So the Warden Service that we have commissioned utilises a system called Tractic. So they report all of their reports through that electronic system, so we get to see pie charts, graphs on where they've been, what types of incidents they've been to, which businesses they've seen. And as part of that reporting, we are, the BID, My Local Bobby, who is the service we have commissioned, are all signed up to the Warwickshire sharing agreement for data, so we can work with the police, community safety, street outreach teams, economic development on sharing that intel and information, and that regularly happens. We probably see the police, I'd say once every 2 weeks at the moment. They pop in the office, our wardens see them daily, they bump into the PCSOs and have those conversations. We have an active working relationship with the police in regard to the events that happen in town centres, so we have briefings in advance of the MOP happening. We've got briefings in front of the Christmas light switch on. I'm meeting Op Resolve this afternoon from the work from the hotspot funding from the PCC as well. So yeah, the wardens are all interlinked with all of those conversations.
Brilliant, that's very reassuring. Councillor Littlewood then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, sorry. Point of clarification and then a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, referring back to your slide set there, there was a phrase, it was quite small typing, so there was a phrase that was on there that referred to deterrent days. I just wondered what deterrent days were.
It is a concept that we will instigate over the next year on having deterrent days in town where we use the power of hello, we use the power of more people on the streets to work with both customer service and crime. So actually it's proven that the power of hello is probably one of the most easiest use to stop shop theft, antisocial behaviour. If you just talk to someone and say, hello, how are you today? So actually putting more people on the streets in high-vis jackets, volunteers, members of the public, everybody just saying, oh, how are you today? We have the intel, we know people are about in town, the warden's CCTV camera, all work together, and that's a deterrent day. A very positive, happy way of saying, no, actually, we're watching you. Don't do it today.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting point. And this is a question of both gentlemen, actually. Views. What is, from what information gathering you've made, what is the most, well, the top three deterrents to business growth in the district? So that's particularly relevant to what you said. You're not just Stratford-upon-Avon centric. So if you could just highlight those, both your opinions would be very welcome.
I would say the ongoing costs to run a business. So we have kept our membership level, membership rates, as we've sort of frozen them for this year for the first time in sort of 5-10 years, just because we know that lots of businesses are struggling. They're struggling to stay afloat. So it'd be sort of cost of rents going up and cost of electricity and everything else. So I think businesses are being asked to do more with less and less resource, whether that's money or actual staffing. So we've found that businesses are coming to us and asking for us to do more off the back of that, which we're trying to help with. But I think, like anything at the moment, with those rising costs, it's a bit of a fight out there at the moment, and businesses are struggling. I think if we can come together and sort of collaborate and help each other out, I think there's real opportunity in that. As one of our funding requirements, we're putting together a Warwickshire tourism steering group, where actually we get lots of key people that work in tourism around Warwickshire in a room and say, you know, what do we need help with? What are our plans for the next 12 months? And I think that collaboration piece has always been missing. As much as we can, we are still a membership organisation, so we can only really concentrate on the people that pay us for membership. but we've brought in free listings, we've brought in free advertising for what's on. So we're trying to do what we can without trying to cannibalise our revenue as well. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a piece around collaboration, how we can work together to promote as one, as opposed to that sometimes there's a little bit of competition, even amongst DMOs. So we are primarily South Warwickshire, but actually a visitor doesn't see the boundaries. So we work with Coventry already, we work with Oxfordshire and the Cotswolds, but we just need to do a little bit more of that, I think, because everybody's got smaller budgets and less time. So
I think I'll add it's perhaps not being able to have a top three, but as Darren said, actually cost. And I think it's the different levels of cost, because actually cost probably can be split into 3, 4, 5, 6 different pots itself. So actually within the district, what can the district do? It's, yes, it is about business support. It's about, do you have the ability to look at business rates relief? But these are all also national issues. So actually there's a national cost, there's a local cost, there's then a cost of doing business. As I intimated in my slide, our customers have changed over the last 50 years. So businesses also may need help in understanding how the world has changed. And actually, if you were selling something in 1998, people might not want that anymore. But yeah, so it's about that information piece as well as looking at costs. So yeah, I think it's a multifaceted question and answer that I don't think we can get to the bottom of, because there are so many different costs that every single organisation has an effect on. We can all help chip away at it, and as Darren says, it's a collaborative approach. We don't know how business rate reforms will happen, and if it happens in the next couple of years under the national government. They've said they want to do it as part of the Pride in Place plan, which is the same as, well, obviously, it's about how we support our town centres and our high streets. Whether we call it Pride in Place, whether we call it levelling up, it's all the same. It's about looking at all the individual costs, looking at how we're supporting those businesses. And yeah, it's all got to fit in together, and lots of different government organisations have all got to work together, because if we change business rates, we then need to look at those multipliers, and is that a different office to the business rates team? And it all affects business, and actually it's almost looking at what's going to happen to the user. It's a bit like parking. I'm going to use the P word, sorry everybody for bringing it up early in the meeting, but it's a service to users, and that's how you should look at parking. It should be looked at as to what it's delivering, which is a service, and we need to look at it as a service, not as a stream. So yeah, that's because if... Yeah.
I mean, I can't argue what you said. A lot of what you said was to do with national government. We can't really influence, well, I can't influence national government.
But the continued support of business support that the district does utilise through Warwickshire County Council, so all of that work for businesses that you do as an organisation through the County Council as well, continue that work.
And my question was really what can be done at district council level to assist with that, because that's all we can talk about here.
The feet on the street would be great. So working with John and with Ali and the team at Economic Development, it is the feet on the street that gets businesses engaged in things.
I'm sort of extrapolating from what you've said, and that would be so ease of access, cost of access, and the reason to come. Those probably are the three things I was talking about.
And a clear offer of what that is. I think we need
well, that goes without saying.
And a joined up clear offer, because as you say,
absolutely.
those services are also delivered by multiple government agencies. So actually, if we can be clear on what we're all delivering together, that's amazing.
Okay, that's I'm pleased with what you've said there. It's clear, and I think everybody will take away some comments from that, thoughts from that. The last thing I'd say, I'd like to agree with Councillor Rolfe with regards to the employment growth figures. I think knowing the breakdown of the sector is critical, because within that growth there may be and there will be some negatives. So that's where the information is, not the overall number. So if you could provide that would be very helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'll bring in Councillor Wally Hoggins and Councillor Johnston in a minute. I've just got a question that links in with that. I was saying that to last, but I think it's ideal it links it, because we've seen in recent years reports that 1/3 of businesses in the hospitality sector are struggling, particularly around the pubs. And we all know the impact of the employer's national insurance costs on small businesses in particular. There's a report on the Cabinet next week where there's a place where there's been a gas increase by 250% and electric increase by 160%. So significant costs that are very difficult for us as a district councillor to help with. I just wondered how you're trying to lobby national government for more support, you know, because obviously they put increased pressures, costs on them in terms of the minimum wage increases, because the intelligence I've got that many in the hospitality sector, or some in the hospitality sector, pay the minimum wage or just above the minimum wage. So when that increases, that again, it's increasing a significant amount of costs on those businesses. I just wondered whether you and yourselves, as part of different organisations, are trying to lobby for more support from central government.
I'm happy to go first. I've got no detail on that lobbying. However, we do work closely with Bid Leamington and with other bids across the region on having those conversations. So we do get together with Federation of Small Businesses, working with the Association of Town and City Managers and the Institute of Place Management and British Bids on all talking together on that lobbying. What's coming down the line? What does FSB know? What's going on in central government, and how can we get in early with those national retailing chains to say, look, we need to use the national retailers to help us with that, because they are affected as well as the small independents, but they also may have a bigger voice in some of those conversations. So yeah, we actively do work with as many organisations as possible to lobby.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Bring your mic just a bit closer, Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please. That's the talk, yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. It's interesting presentations today. I personally think that the figures comparison for when we come to next year, looking back at this year, will perhaps be will be an interesting read, I think, with sort of national economic factors. One of the things that I'm going to jump straight into is to say that, you know, having looked at this, I've looked at the Visit Britain website, and I've also looked at the Visit England website as well, which you could imagine that a lot of tourists would look at that, quite potential tourists. And I have to say that the Visit Britain campaign at the moment is something called set jetting, which I'm sure you've seen all of that. You know, there must be other places in Stratford that we've used or around this area that should have been featured in that. And it's really is a question of, you know, have we got a loud enough voice with these organisations to say, you know, come here? Because one of the things that's really of concern to our district at the moment is the massive redundancies that have been announced from the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. And if you consider that we've got set jetting as part of that, some of the very best actors that this country has have featured in their careers at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and I do think that we are perhaps missing a trick there with regard to publicity and getting people out to see where these things were started. So really, my question to you is have we got a big enough presence? Are people listening to us? And do you have any control over the photographs that are being used to promote Stratford within these organisations? And again, we feature really low down in Visit England and Visit Britain. You know, you have to look quite hard to find Shakespeare. If you consider that in the past, Stratford-on-Avon has been a go-to destination. For goodness sake, we're going out to China because they've got deep pockets, etc., to come over here. And what they want to see is Tudor buildings, people dressed in Tudor outfits, wandering around the town, you know, making it look like this is a tourist destination, surely. So my question to you is, if you can just bear with, because I can feel the chair staring at me now, is it's just really, I want to know what effect we're having and how we can push the tourist board's marketing campaigns to feature Stratford-on-Avon more prominently, and how we work with key partners like the Royal Shakespeare Theatre to really put this on the map. Because really, people are doing a lot of research for holidays now, not just through travel agents, through videos, online, that kind of thing. And we must not forget the influence, because, you know, people are watching far more television now, so locations really matter. So we need to be doing a lot more, I think, as a district, to be promoting this area
get to the
for that.
question
And
now?
how are we working with those organisations that promote that, so that we get this influx of tourists coming here? All right, we can't get, perhaps Spider-Man could come here and do a film. That's what I'm saying. It is that. Some people would say it was shallow, but it isn't. It's what people want to see.
I think they've got the point. And as for Spider-Man, we already use the World Wide Web, so I think we do attract people there. Right, now, carry on, Darren. I've set the scene. And Councillor Wally Hoggins is given a complex question there, so feel free to answer it in several ways.
Thank you. Firstly, we are part of the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Visitor Economy Partnership. I don't want to get into too much detail about what that is, but that essentially means we have a voice directly into Visit Britain. So we have Nicholas Said, who's our regional director, who I speak with probably at least weekly. So we do have that link into Visit Britain, and I am actually the lead for that partnership. So within Coventry and Warwickshire, it's myself who has those conversations. In terms of the website, yes, we can push back and say, can you change some of our photography? Whether they listen to us is another thing, but we can make those points. And they run the website, so they wouldn't necessarily come to us if they were putting something new on there and say, have you got this content for us? But we can certainly ask for changes to be made. I believe some of it is in alphabetical order, which is why we might be lower down the page than others. But again, I can ask that question. In terms of the jet setting campaign, there are lots of work that we've already jetting campaign. Sorry. There are lots of things that we've already done around that. So we've done some PR around it, and we've got some other PR that's coming up. So there's a couple of things that are coming out. The new Hamnet film is coming out with Paul Menskow. We've got a familiarization trip from buyers from the US who are coming over in November, I believe, as part of that. So that actually releases in January, which we think is going to be a really big thing, which we're going to be shouting about as loud as we possibly can. West Midlands Growth Company actually are putting together a new film desk. So Stratford or South Warwickshire, we haven't had a film desk before. So essentially what that means is companies will call that desk to see what filming locations are available in the area. So that is something we're working with the West Midlands Growth Company on. We did have somebody from Film Warwickshire speaking at our last tourism forum about how businesses can be a part of it and how they can encourage people to come and film and use their locations as filming locations. So yes, we are doing a lot of work in the area. There's still more to be done, and we'll continue to do that. But yeah, I will ask the questions of Visit Britain about the website as well.
Quick follow-up, and then I'll move on quickly on to Councillor Johnston. Do you want to come in then afterwards, Councillor Passingham?
Sorry, can you, just as part of that, sorry, is the, can you explain to me what is the Shakespeare England's Explorer Pass? What does that mean for us as a district, please? And I think perhaps both of you could answer that. And what does that have? What effect does that have on?
That is a product that Shakespeare's England run.
Okay,
so it's run by Open Pass, who run passes all around the UK. So Visit York Pass, Birmingham have recently launched theirs. Essentially, it's an offering where members will sign up to be a part of the pass. So, for example, we've got Warwick Castle, the Motor Museum, the Mad Museum, and you can buy a pass to visit all 3 attractions. There are 12 different members on the pass, and it's cheaper than going and getting individual tickets if you were to visit each individual place.
Brilliant. Councillor Johnston, I know you've been waiting. Come on in, please.
Maybe a similar answer to the Councillor Wally Hoggins' question. I'm interested in the reduction in overnight stays, which seems to have been a problem for some time. I'm just wondering, are there any particular markets that we seem to have lost, or fundamentally?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen a drop in the Southeast Asian market, which is why we're back out there promoting this year. That has really been picked up by the US market. So America and Canada, we've seen a lot more visits into the UK in general. as Aaron alluded to earlier on, our behaviours have changed since COVID. So the hotels are really struggling at the moment, actually, with late bookings. So the number of nights has reduced. We've seen that. The value has gone up, but we are working to try and sort of increase those overnight trips by bringing out new itineraries and different recommendations. The late booking is having and late cancellations is having a real negative effect. So it's something that hotels are looking to or at across the industry, and that's it's a UK-wide problem. And it really started with COVID. People were getting COVID, and then obviously they needed to put different booking sort of terms and conditions in so that you could cancel last minute. And we still see people across the board booking much more late. But yeah, we're putting, as I say, we're putting together itineraries to look at it and to try and sort of move people around. And the bigger offer we have, such as using the Explorer Pass, people will therefore need to stay longer. And so that's what we're trying to work on there.
Brilliant. Councillor Ralph.
Yes, Chair. Is it appropriate for my written question to be answered? Do you want me to reiterate it?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm more than happy for you to...
So my written question was about the empty properties in Stratford-on-Avon and what we can do about it to... I know it's difficult to re-rent them, you know, all of that, but can we get organisations like Art Stratford and Escape Arts to prettify some of the shop windows just so that it looks better than it does? And also, can we try and encourage more pop-ups? I know that might be difficult with the owners of the properties, but surely it's better to have something there, even if it's for a month or 2 weeks. It's better to have something rather than nothing. Are you working on that? And let's get some pots of paint out there and do something with these shop windows. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Two-part question. So the first one about empty units. Everybody, economic development, BID, are all working on looking at how we can support and work with the people, work with the landlords on those empty units. And as you say, we have approximately 20 in the town centre at the moment, all in various different levels of emptiness, if we can use that as a term. Actually, some of them are already let, but you wouldn't know that, but they're going through that legal process, and that legal process can take months. You know how long it takes to buy your own home, and that can take weeks on end. It can take even longer if you're looking at leases, telecoms, and things to do with businesses, etc. So some of those are in place. Where there are long-term empties, we all have to work together on looking at what the solutions are. Those long-term, and again, the size of those units will affect how long that process is and how complicated that process is. We're talking about private companies that we have almost very little control over, a private decision for a private business, just like a private home. So you're in a position where you've got lots of things that affect that empty unit. But then the smaller units in Stratford-on-Avon in the town centre go very quickly. We also must celebrate maybe the 15 new businesses that have started and that have taken up those businesses and those premises in Stratford. Jacket Potato, Salt Beef, Hotter Shoes. There's numerous to mention, and I can reel off a list of all the people that have come to Stratford and have really utilised those empty units. Pop-ups, again, it really relates to the landlord, how quickly they can issue a licence or even a lease. And obviously, there are different ways of being able to rent that property out. So a licence is a quicker way. But again, you have less freedom on what you can do. The fit-out of said pop-up, who's going to pay those costs? Does a pop-up business want to pay for those units and the costs? Telecoms, all the services that need to go in, do they just go in for a couple of weeks? It's really difficult. You also, if anyone's got any pop-ups, anyone's got anybody that's approached them, we all would like to work with them. Anybody that's come to my door in the last quarter, we've worked with introducing them to properties, introducing them to empty units. We helped Salt Beef get in. We helped other people get into businesses. So yeah, if there is no set answer for how we can deal with that. It's if someone's got an idea and someone wants to pop up, let's have those conversations. Let's talk to Belcourt. Let's talk to landlords. The art of the possible is there. but every single individual conversation and unit has got a different conversation to be had. So sorry, it's not a direct answer, but it's, and vinyls and pop-ups and art, absolutely wonderful. But again, landlord permissions, health and safety, who's going to do it? Who's going to pay for it? It's really great that we have some great charities and some great companies in Stratford that want to do that. There is a cost that's still involved with putting those art installations in, and someone has to bear those costs. And do you have that conversation, and can we have that amicable conversation with landlords? Or is it the district council, is it the town council? Who can fund those initiatives? Yeah.
Brilliant. I've got Councillor Rice, then Councillor Wally-Hoggins, then I think we'll bring it to a close then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. How damaging is it that there are, the direct rail service from London to Stratford-upon-Avon is very, very poor? I'm not sure how many direct trains there are, but there certainly are very few early in the morning to Stratford. It's a very long, tortuous journey, and it can't be attractive, but I'd be interested in your comments.
Yeah, so we partner with Chiltern, and it's a conversation we have quite regularly with them. It is damaging, there's no doubt about it, and all we can do is push Chiltern to try and lobby them to open up those routes. And we hear positive things, but as of yet, there's nothing concrete that has come back. But we will continue to push for those routes, for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Yeah, it's just a question. John Carford, are you here to deal with this matter, or for another reason? And if so, what would you like us to know about the council's involvement with this important work?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so my department covers economic development and overseas tourism, and it's, as has been said, it's how we can work together to support the work that these two organisations do, the great work they do. What can we do additionally? And as has also been said, yeah, we've got a lot of work going on the high streets with set up place partnerships. So it's that collaborative thing. Our role as a district council is very much as facilitator, and it's trying to use our resources as well as resources of Shakespeare's England and the bid to engage with landlords in particular to try and bring those properties back into use primarily. I think we need to look to see if we can be a bit more targeted and use some of our funding we've got to be perhaps a bit more tangible. So I think that's the role we have moving forwards. We've got a new economic development manager in post now, so it's how we use our resource to actually deliver things on the ground so people can see those tangible benefits. But it's hopefully, as has been said, it's all working together with that same aim and pulling in the same direction. And I think the single sort of website for the town is a really good example of that, because prior to this, when it gets launched, if you put Stratford into Google or whatever search engine, lots of different websites come up and you didn't know what you were looking at. Whereas if we can direct visitor traffic to a single brand, it's a stronger brand. And that's the ultimate thing, is about getting those visitor numbers back. And I think the key thing that Darren's figures have shown is that although there's still work to do, we're better than the national average. So, you know, something's going right, but that's not to say we're resting on our laurels.
Yes, go on.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carford. Can you therefore explain to us how it's come to pass that we have the derelict British Home Stores building still in the appalling state that it is in, and why we have been unable to do anything to rectify that situation? It just gets worse and worse as each passing year. It is prime retail. It's what some people see as the first moment they come in here into the town, and it is somewhat of a shame. Not a shame. I am ashamed of the state of that building in our great and beautiful town that we all represent. What is happening about addressing that issue, please?
Yes, I take that point. So we did work with the owner, and they invested in repairing the listed buildings, the front onto Bridge Street. I know the more modern aspects of the building. There is some they're slightly run down. We are in dialogue with the owner. It's a prime site, but as Aaron said earlier, there have been a number of national shifts in retail and customer demands, and those larger footprint stores across the country are very difficult to find occupiers for. And what you're seeing in some places, not all, there are still derelict department stores right across the country. You are starting to see some leisure offers come in. I think we have to look as whether the town is big enough to accommodate some of those leisure offers, explore those aspects. It has got a consent for a hotel, and we're working with the owner there to understand whether the investor's there to bring that to fruition. So we are in dialogue with them. It is frustrating, but it is a particularly challenging site because of its size and footprint. It is also very prominent, and I am very conscious of the need to do something there, and we are behind the scenes endeavouring to do something.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Gentlemen, I'll give you one opportunity each to let us know something you're most proud of in the last 12 months. So I've just sprung at you, but I thought we'd end on a positive, on a high, something you're proud of that's happened due to your efforts. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say I've already touched on both, but I mean, there's lots of work going on in the background around data and what those social media figures actually mean to the tourism figures. But the numbers that we're producing at the moment are quite exceptional, actually, over the past 12 months. And we're seeing a growth in everything that we do. And my overall point will be around the 2024 visitor numbers. We know that, businesses out there are struggling. We know that, not everybody is going to look at these figures and go, where's the positives for me as a business? We know that. But actually, we have gone against the trend for the rest of the UK. So we should be really positive and positively shouting about these numbers. There's a lot of negative press out there, both locally and nationally. And so when we do see some positives, we really need to push them out as much as we can, more than the negative stuff almost. So yeah, my thing that I'm proud of sitting here right now is these figures. And as I say, we received these last week. So it's really nice to know what we're doing is moving everything in the right direction.
Mine's a bit more anecdotal and not data-driven. On a day-to-day basis, I now get the ability to wander around town, speak to businesses, speak to residents, speak to visitors, and actually, every day virtually, I get someone who smiles, is happy, says, what a great place this is. This is an amazing place to be. I have people sat outside Mustapha's in the morning, walking their dogs. People really enjoy living here, working here. And absolutely, I now feel as the bid manager in town that I'm part of that town centre. So actually, I'm proud of the last 11 months and feeling like, do you know what? We put on a motor festival, we put on a food festival, and everybody's smiling and everybody's happy and everyone's loving it. Yes, you will always get feedback and criticism, but do you know what? The majority of people say, good job, well done. So that's what I'm proud of.
It's always good to get positive feedback, and like I say, things I'd pointed out, Darren's just pointed out ourselves, like booking the national trend and higher in COVID figures in terms of attendance, etc. So yeah, that was really positive. So thank you, gentlemen. Hopefully it wasn't too painful and there wasn't too many puns from the chair, and keep up the good work and see you again soon, maybe this time next year. Thank you. And I'm proposing, whilst we clear the room, and to get Kate's look, but we have a break for 5 minutes. Happy with that? Thank you. Right, welcome back after that short adjournment and after our enlightening session from Shakespeare's England and Stratford-on-Avon Business Improvement District, which I thought was beneficial and informative. So just again, thank you for the two gentlemen who came in. Now we move on to the update on devolution and local government. Thank you, Mesa. And we've got our guest speaker, Mr. Buckland, who's flown in from upstairs at great expense. And we'll pass over to you, Mr. Buckland. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. You should have, hopefully, on your desks a double-sided piece of A4 paper that I was going to just talk through.
It's been emailed.
Okay.
We were saving paper.
Okay. I will talk to it, and I'll email you again later. I don't think it shouldn't spoil anything. That means everything you're going to hear is fresh and novel.
We're listening to you first time rather than looking at the paper, so I think we'll get a better update. Thank you.
So this is probably going to be my last update in this phase of local government reorganisation. Obviously, local government reorganisation will go on for several years. But of course, we as an authority will be making quite a significant decision in this room on the 17th of November. Ahead of that, obviously, we have the meeting on the 5th of November for the Review and Scrutiny Committee to consider the proposals. But hopefully this is the last update before then. I think since what's happened last time, there's been changes at the most senior level within government. So Angela Rayner, Secretary of State, has left government. New secretary come in, Steve Reed, and also change of local government minister. So it's no longer Jim McMahon, it's a lady called Alison McGovern. There had been some speculation about whether that change in Secretary of State and Minister would impact on LGR. You'll all have seen the letter that I circulated the Friday before last. Absolutely not. It's a real priority of the new Secretary of State, Steve Reed, to progress with local government reorganisation. So pretty much as you were, we are required to submit proposals for the reorganisation of local government in Warwickshire by the 28th of November. That's the challenge we've been placed at the moment. You'll also be aware that in July there was a council debate which concluded that the preference for those structures moving forward would be for a 2-unitary Warwickshire, and that was a basis that was used in the engagement exercise. But you will be making your final decision on the 17th. So we're still in that phase of gathering evidence to help you make your decisions in November. We have commissioned work through a firm of consultants called People 2. People 2 have been working specifically with us on the kind of services that we are not used to delivering at district councils. Therefore, mainly the county-based services of adult social care, children's services, homeschool transport, SEND, all of the functions which are currently undertaken at the county level. We've already had some evidence fed back from that particular firm of consultancy to the Devolution and Local Government Reorganisation Working Group on the 17th of September. They are now doing a separate commission for us, another piece of work, which is looking at that's the possible, what it could look like, how would you get there, so that they're developing some kind of implementation plan. You'll also be aware, hopefully, that the public stakeholder and engagement process has now been concluded. That finished on the 14th of September. ORS, who are an independent research company working on behalf of the 4 district councils, and that the 4 are ourselves, Warwick, Nuneaton and Bedworth and North Warwickshire. A report is being produced at the moment, but I can tell you we've had over 2,300 responses to that engagement exercise. That will help inform your decision when it comes to that in November. Other pieces of work which are ongoing at the moment is Deloitte, who did the initial analysis, are doing a further report for council on the business case and what would be then potentially the submission document that the council would make. As I said, mentioned at ORS, we've got a session of the Local Government Reorganisation Working Group on the 22nd of October, when we're hoping to hear back from them on their final reports. And then at that same working group, ahead of the publication of the report for Cabinet and Council, there'll be a further meeting of the working group on the 29th of October, when we look at effectively the final report. The kind of timetable moving forward is that we do expect to publish the report for Cabinet on the 31st of October. That's the Friday. I think it's Friday the half-term week, but then straight into the following week, it gets really quite busy. So on the Monday and Tuesday, the 3rd and 4th of November, we're going to be doing full councillor briefings, one of which I've been asked to do in person. So on one of those 2 dates, we haven't decided the which yet, but either the 3rd or the 4th will be in person, and the other session will be online. So that's a briefing for all councillors. Obviously, we had the extraordinary meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 5th of November. We have an additional parish forum. There's a lot of interest from our local town and parish councils on the 6th of November. Ahead of then, the extraordinary meeting of the Cabinet on the 10th, and then Council on the 17th. Sorry, Chair, were you indicating? Okay.
Thank you, Aaron. I was just making notes of the timescale. Thank you.
All ahead of our submission on the 28th. What I just thought I'd just take a little bit of time in just updating the committee on is what happens after the 28th of November. How long before government makes their decisions and what the next steps would be. So the first milestone post-submission will be the government consultation on the options available within Warwickshire. So whilst we've done engagement, there is a formal consultation exercise which would be undertaken. And government, we're told, will consult upon all viable options. So they won't identify a preference at that stage. They'll just say you could have either option A or option B, or option C indeed, if there's more than one option, 2 options. In Surrey, the local authorities in Surrey submitted 3 options for local government reorganisation. Only 2 were consulted upon because one of them was found not to have been viable and didn't meet all of the 6 questions that we have to respond to as part of the submission process. In Surrey, the consultation exercise that they're undertaking did close on the 5th of August. There was a 7-week formal consultation process. Of course, Surrey are the only council which are going to go live on local government reorganisation in 2027. And that being used by in a lot of quarters as the kind of, well, what happens there will happen elsewhere. We expect the consultation period for Warwickshire to be held before the May 2026 elections. Now, well, we don't have any elections at Stratford-on-Avon District Council. I think it's Nuneaton and Bedworth have elections in halves, and they've got elections scheduled in May next year, and Rugby have elections in thirds, and they have elections next year as well. We expect the consultation period hopefully to be concluded before we get into the pre-election period for those elections. So the government will take that and they'll consider the options. Given that Surrey's consultation finished on the 5th of August, we are expecting an announcement in relation to Surrey in mid-October, so it will be at least a couple of months after the close of the consultation period. We expect the government decision. Now, that won't come before the elections which are scheduled for on the 7th of May. We're probably expecting it in June or July, but at least before Parliament rises. Now, that decision will be whether there's a single or a 2 unitary Warwickshire. They're the only 2 proposals which are being discussed at the moment. But then also the type of council that will be created, whether it will be a continuing authority, and if it is likely to be a single unitary Warwickshire moving forward, it has been in a number of cases that the government choose a continuing authority, which would mean that effectively the county council still exists and functions are bolted on to the county council, or the government could determine that a newly established authority or authorities are formed. That's quite important, and I'll come back to why that's important in a minute when we talk about some of the implementations. What we will be able to do, though, at that point collectively is identify what the solution the government is implementing will be, and we will all then get fully behind the implementation plan for the delivery of whatever that option is. Government will then take some time in preparing legislation, and that will go through by means of a structural change order in the autumn. Now, if we have a continuing authority, at that point, the structural change orders are likely to establish what's called an implementation executive, which will oversee the preparations of the new council before the shadow elections. If it's an implementation executive, on a county council basis, it would have a majority of county councillors and a minority of district councillors on that group moving forward. If it's a new authority which is formed, you get equal representation on that new joint committee, it's called. It's not called now an implementation executive, it would be called a joint committee. For Warwickshire, for instance, if it was a South Warwickshire, it would likely have 3 members from the county council, 3 from the district of Stratford and 3 from the district of Warwick, working together to oversee the arrangements for the newly established council to be. And during this period, obviously, there'll be lots of work on delivering on the implementations plans to make sure that everything is in order for the vesting date. We know the date of the elections scheduled for May 2027, so 6th of May 2027 would be shadow elections. They would be electing members to that new authority, which would then go live in the following April. The government within the structural change orders will lay out what kind of electoral arrangements will be used for those elections. What has happened in other places is that the existing county council divisions are used and you elect either 2 or 3 members to those. That doesn't mean to say that would be the case, but that's one of the options which is being considered. It's likely at that point as well that government will then issue to us a Section 24 direction, which would effectively restrict the amount of expenditure that we can enter into as a district council without reference back to that newly established shadow council. And in other areas, such restrictions have been that no revenue expenditure can be committed to of greater than £100,000 and no capital scheme can be entered into higher than £1 million without the authority of that shadow council. 2027 will be an extraordinarily busy year in appointing the new management team, the new structures for the new council, so that when it goes live on the 1st of April 2028, then that authority is, there's a term called safe and legal, that government have then got the confidence that that entity can take on from the predecessor authorities, and at that point, obviously the district council will be abolished on the 31st of March 2028 and the new authorities established. Now, we are still working all on the basis that, apart from Surrey, the other 20 county council areas will all go live on the 1st of April 2028. We put that back to MHCLG officials 2 weeks ago, and that's still the preference. I think it's fair to say it would be a real stretching target for government to meet all 20 to go live on that date, but that's what we're being told. So, Chair, I'm hope to ask and answer any questions, but that's pretty much where we are.
Right then, I've got a couple of questions, but I'm willing to wait for members. Councillor Wally Hoggins, then Councillor Rice, please.
Yes, hello, David. The People 2 chats the other Wednesday, they were going to let us know which other authorities they'd compared, which authorities they'd compared to. I still haven't had that information, I don't think. They did mention Torbay as one of them, I believe, but I did want some reassurance as to what else, precisely which councils they'd looked at for that documentation. And the next question is, how much have we spent at the moment on all of these reports, please?
Firstly, I'm disappointed if you haven't had that, because we have had the information from People 2, and I asked for it to be distributed to all the members of the working group. So I'll check that if you've been missed off, apologies, I'll make sure that you get that. So how much have we spent? The government have recognised that we need to resource the collection of the evidence for local government reorganisation proposals. Government announced funding of 258,000 for Warwickshire. We agreed between ourselves as district and boroughs and the county council that there are 2 valid options which are being explored for local government reorganisation. Half the funding has been allocated through agreement to the county council, so best part of 130,000 was at the county council, and the district council, and actually Stratford that took the funding for 130,000 for our element. Now, obviously that funding will be used first, and the Deloitte report, the People 2 report, PA Connect, and I'm trying to think of the last company, ORS, the costs will be in excess of 130,000, absolutely. It's likely to be closer to 200,000 pounds, the kind of costs. I haven't got the exact figure now, but I can circulate that as part of the minutes. The 130,000 is netted off, and then the costs are shared equally amongst the other district and boroughs. So I think I'm expecting the cost, the net cost, if you like, to the district to be less than £20,000.
Thank you. Councillor Rice, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I have read your report, David, and it's very Stratford-centric, but you have been referring to other councils. I seem to remember that the original request from government was ideally for a single report rather than multiple reports. Where are we now with that? Will there be 3 reports to the government on the 28th of November? One from Rugby, one from county, and one from the other 3 district and borough councils, or what exactly?
Okay. We're allowed to make our own response. We don't have to partner with anybody. We are currently working very closely with Nuneaton, North Warwickshire and Warwick, and depending upon council decisions, and I can't predict obviously what that will be, I'm expecting there to be a single submission from those 4. I think the position at Rugby is unclear as to what their preference is at the moment in relation to local government reorganisation. They could well support the 2, or they could well support that there's a single unitary Warwickshire. The implementation plans, though, that were submitted in March didn't identify any other viable options, and Rugby were part of that submission document in March. Yeah, but I'm sorry, I suppose I make no apologies for this being a Stratford-centric document. I'm Stratford-on-Avon District Council's Chief Executive, and therefore I'd make it so. But I think the positives, we have been working very collaboratively with the County Council on the evidence base. What government have asked us to do is to ensure that we all start from the same base data, and your monitoring officer, Marcia Eccleston, has been our single point of contact with the County Council on that data gathering exercise. They've put together a library of evidence that Deloitte's are using along with officers at the County Council. So they're all starting from the same starting point. Assumptions, I'm sure, will be different on both sides, but look, we are working together as far as we possibly can. Come the government decision, we've all then absolutely signed up to the principle, whatever that government decision is, we will absolutely make the very best for our residents and our staff of putting in place what those arrangements are. So yes, it is a Stratford document. We can put our own submission in. We were encouraged at the interim plan to try and put a joint one in, and we kind of did, because we had a single letter that had both options. It's possible that something like that would happen at the time of the submission of the... If we're not in agreement with the County Council, there would be more than one submission made.
You okay, Councillor Arson? Councillor Johnston, please.
I did ask this question a couple of months ago. If this is my last opportunity, I'll give it another go. How far are we expected to make a comment on the future strategic authority in our submission? Because it does seem to me that that could have a significant impact. If the West Midlands is denied to us, where else does Warwickshire go? And it doesn't seem comfortable for whichever, north or south, to go in the same direction.
That's a really important question, and if we go back to December last year, the white paper that was issued was all about devolution. Now, it's quite interesting that in the latest central government reshuffle, the responsibilities for local government reorganisation and devolution that used to sit with the same minister have now been split across government. I hope there's nothing too much to be read into that. What we have been told by MHCLG officials at a meeting that we had nearly 2 or 3 weeks ago now was that within the document, and it's the 5th exam question that we have to identify about how we think devolution will work within our area. We have to identify potential for strategic authorities. We don't absolutely have to nail our colours to the mast, though, at this particular point. The options that were within the interim plan The first option that was being considered was the West Midlands Combined Authority. You'll be aware that the response back from the Mayor has said he does not see the boundary of the West Midlands Combined Authority being extended at least before the May 2028 elections. So that effectively has closed the door. The other two options that were debated in the interim plan was that, yes, we either as a whole county, and be that one or two unitaries, buddy up with another county council area. And there has been discussions about potentially Worcestershire and Herefordshire, and whilst that makes some sense to localities surrounding Stratford, it makes less sense if you're sat in Atherstone or Nuneaton to have. So that whilst that isn't been discounted, it's still an option. The other option that could work, that was in the interim plan, was the idea that you have a standalone county strategic authority. Similar to what has happened, we've already seen in Cumbria. Cumbria has a population of 525,000. It was okay in Cumbria. Warwickshire's population is currently 617,000. It could be at least an option that's considered that you have a standalone strategic Warwickshire authority, possibly with some kind of special relationship or some kind of linkages to the West Midlands Combined Authority. What we know when we're looking at and a lot of this is the whole point of the devolution is to try and accelerate economic growth. A lot of our businesses that operate within Warwickshire operate in Coventry as well, and to be in a different strategic authority to Coventry is a bit of a challenge to us. We've got the Coventry and Warwickshire Growth Hub, we have the Coventry and Warwickshire ICB. We are linked from those perspectives. When we've been looking at our housing supply, we've been taking overspill from Coventry in the past. The preference would have been to go into the Combined Authority, but there might still be an option that we could work very closely with the Combined Authority.
Councillor Rice, follow up, please.
Just a quickie, because I don't know the answer to this, but maybe I've missed something. What happens to Stratford-on-Avon District Council between May 2027 and April 2028?
Okay, so look, if we are going live on April 2028, and I'm not saying that we're not, but if we work on that basis, you guys get the pleasure and privilege of having your stay extended. Now, I fully expect government to defer the district council elections, which are scheduled for May 2027, and you'd be held over. You'd effectively serve a term of 4 years and 11 months. Stratford-on-Avon, though, district council will continue to exist until the vesting date, on which the staff of the authority would then transfer under TUPE-like, it's not exactly TUPE, but it's TUPE-like arrangements into the new council, whatever that may be, whether that be at South Warwickshire or Unitary Warwickshire, apart from myself, who's laid off. But anyway, I won't dwell on that point. So yeah, you continue to operate. We continue to deliver all the valuable services that we're currently doing. As I mentioned earlier, some of our decision making will be restricted by reference back to the new Shadow Council, but that doesn't mean to say that we wouldn't be pressing on with all kinds of initiatives still.
Right, yeah, I've got a couple of questions. First one, David, related to Surrey, where there was 3 options put in and one was removed due to viability concerns. Was that MHCLG who disqualified that bid?
Absolutely, yeah. There would be an assessment by MHCLG officials and then ultimately the Minister as to whether they've met the criteria. As I understand it, the bid that wasn't allowed didn't cover the whole of Surrey. It was proposals which talked about a particular part of Surrey, but didn't consider the whole of Surrey. When we make our submissions, we have to make sure that the proposals that we're putting forward covers the entirety of Warwickshire. We can't just worry about the South or Stratford district. We have to worry about the whole of the county.
So in other words, they probably hadn't read the brief properly and the homework was
no comment.
marked out.
I don't know.
Yeah, and obviously I think Councillor Rice has alluded to some of my question. You know me, I'm a bit of a pedant when it comes to like workloads and realistic timescales, and you sort of like gave some sort of indication that there's a possibility that timescales could slip, and it's a bit counterintuitive to ask the Section 151 officer to bet on when the when the new organisation would take place, because obviously you have to be prudent and make sure you get value for money. I think my concern is that, like you said, there's 20 counties, etc., and to get the work done by 2028 and up and running, I think they're being quite optimistic. So if that didn't happen, it was deferred to 29, I assume district council elections would go ahead in 27?
That wouldn't be my decision, but ultimately, yeah. So government would make a decision as to whether they would hold you over for 5 years, 11 months. It's unprecedented for them to hold elections over for that period. So I should imagine, my expectation would be, if say implementation was delayed until 2029, that yes, we would then have district council elections in the May of 2027. But that wouldn't be our decision. That would be a decision made by government.
Councillor Rice, please.
Sorry, I'm going to ask a facetious question. I seem to remember there was a certain delay in getting responses from the government because Warwickshire is at the end of the alphabet. Will that also be the same, do you think, with implementation?
I think that's quite a good question, Councillor Rice. I'm very impressed. Well done.
No, no comment. To be fair, look, we made our point to government at that point. It was disappointing that our feedback had been quite so delayed. I made a request. Could we have a delay in the submission date because of the delay in the feedback? I think they will probably not look at it in alphabetical order when they're considering which authorities go live or not on the 1st of April 2028. My personal position, I think they'd look at the simpler options first. The areas which are more straightforward would likely to go forward first. There are some proposals, not within Warwickshire, which talk about splitting up district council areas. Proposals in Oxfordshire. Oxford City Council are coming forward with proposals which talk about taking areas currently under another district, not the whole of the district, but parts of the district. They would be considered to be more complicated, in my opinion. Of course, I don't know what government's view on that would be, but I think some proposals are going to be more straightforward than others. And if I was government, I'd probably want to get those under my belt first.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the simpler options, because I have a feeling they'll go for the simpler option with Warwickshire, to be fair. But can you tell me what you think or know the consultation process will look like? So that means when you've done a submission, because the other authorities have been through it now, what can we expect? Because what's bothering me is that all of this is, we're in the process now, and the wind down the council is we're legacy creating here, but yet on top of that, we're dealing with this. So what will that consultation look like, do we think?
Well, okay, so the Surrey consultation that's now closed, government created a website, and government laid out the two options which were available for Surrey. Surrey County Council never advocated for a single unitary Surrey, so they supported an option which would be a two authority Surrey, and there was a second option that was consulted upon, which we had 3 unitary authorities to be established for Surrey. I believe the rationale behind that is that Surrey, with a population of around 1.5 million in any case, wanted to create a strategic authority on the current county boundary. So yeah, there's an online portal that government would run. I'm sure the local authorities would promote that website so that our residents or their residents were aware of what was going on. But yeah, there's no road shows. There's nothing. I think they can take written submissions, but it's mainly an online portal that is used.
Councillor Rolfe, please.
Yeah, David, are we any closer in knowing the status of towns and parish councillors in this new regime? I mean, has anything happened there?
Okay, so that's exam question number 6 on the submission document, and that talks about future governance arrangements. Within Stratford District, we've got a good network of town and parish councils, and I praise Mesa for the exercise that was currently undertaken, or recently undertaken, around potential community governance reviews moving forward. I think the majority, to be fair, Kate, I think the majority of our town and parish councils, there could be some asset transfers, that's happened elsewhere, but I would not see the fundamental role of town and parish councils changing significantly. I think within Stratford, there may be issues around public open space in Stratford, which is currently under the management of the District Council, which isn't the case in all of the other town and parish councils. Elsewhere within Warwickshire, you've got places like Rugby, Nuneaton and Bedworth, who don't currently have any town and parish councils. I could see community governance reviews happening in those places to establish something between, well, something between the unitary authorities. We've been asked within that exam question, though, how do we keep relevant to our neighbourhoods? And it could be that we reinstate things like neighbourhood area committees that I think probably you were on council before when we had the Avon, Dasset, Stour and Arden area committees, neighbourhood committees as well. There's options within that, but fundamentally I do not see the role, and that's my personal view, it might prove to be wrong. I was wrong about other
Okay,
things in
just
the
a
past.
tiny follow-up then. So do you see parishes and town councils, well certainly in Stratford District some of the smaller parishes kind of amalgamating to be slightly bigger, but also do you see them taking on more of a remit? I mean obviously with more money coming in, do you see them doing more, if you like, and becoming mini borough district councils?
Look, I'm aware in Wiltshire, places like Chippenham Town Council have significantly expanded. It was quite interesting when the feedback was issued to us individually for Warwickshire. Government also did national feedback on the proposals that were in the interim plans. There were some concerns from government that the precepting issue at town and parish councils, that areas that haven't already got town and parishes, actually you're putting another layer of potential taxation in. I know, for instance, in Rugby, and there's something called special expenses that the District Council currently levies and charges their council tax payers just in the town of Rugby for the facilities of Rugby. That will effectively take the place of the future parish precept. But there was concerns from government about the growth on parish councils. Currently, town and parish councils aren't capped, of course, but again, I'm speculating and I don't like doing that. Potentially, government might look at ways of restricting those potential increases if they get too concerned about that.
Right, I don't think there's any further questions. I think gone off relatively lightly there, Mr. Buckland. So thank you for that. And obviously, if you can make sure that the members do get the briefing if they haven't got it. And thank you for presenting today. Right then, number 8 on the agenda, which is to receive an update on the Task and Finish Group, privately managed public open spaces, flood alleviation schemes and estate roads. Councillor Johnson, do you want to open
Yes,
on
please.
this one?
Thank you, Chair. Essentially, this morning, I'll be asking for the remit of the group and the timescale imposed on the group to be extended. It's clear to me that we've made good progress on the strictly limited remit which we've been given. But if we're confined to these tasks, I've no doubt we'll be able to complete them within 3 months. However, members of the group have raised other concerns that are critical to this topic and are not covered in the remit. To go back to the primary aim of the Task and Finish Group, we believe it was to explore options on privately owned open space to basically address poor maintenance and service charges, which are not included in the remit at the present. These, in the view of officers and myself, are the crux of the matter, and these are the things which members are raising and members of the public are raising with members of this council. So my fundamental proposal is that we should be able to amend the terms of reference and to report back probably on an interim basis, because it will take some time, maybe at the end of March or early April. If we can do that, we can do a good deal more work in proper consultation of residents. We have ideas of Mr Purfield's department being involved in conducting a survey of residents on some of these sites. We will also be able to take forward better consultation with parish councils and not be constrained to doing this over, a couple of weeks. If we are to conform to our timetable, our last meeting would actually be the 11th of November. That will give us, we would have to produce a report then in order to meet the timescale of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which I think is on the 26th of November, to meet the Cabinet on the 1st of December. I just think that's, we're going to go through a process which will be unsatisfactory and frustrating for everybody. And I don't know what the process for doing that is, but that is my proposal today.
Yeah, I believe, Minister, that it was a directive from full council. I think the request will have to go back to full council. I think we need to be clear what the request is, and then clarify that situation and get approval from the full council. I've been told by an esteemed gentleman on my left and my right here, so I think that's a fact. It is quite noticeable, and I don't like to say I told you so, but when this was first raised, both by full Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee, I did raise my concerns what we were opening. I felt it was a pretty complex task, and we were likely to discover different associated items that we hadn't potentially thought about. So what you're proposing, I've got no problem with, an interim report, which again I suggested at the time and at full Cabinet, and I think I even raised it at full council, that we had the interim report within the 3 months, and then taking into account any other things that we found at a later date. And that seems to have come to task, come to fruition. So just call me Psychic Andy, but I'm more than happy to agree with the proposal. But I think we have to be clear and concise what we're asking for, and also have some sense of realism in terms of the timescale. So any other comments and thoughts on that? Councillor Rolfe.
If it comes to council, have we got time, full council, have we got time to include it in the agenda? If not, can it come to Cabinet? We haven't got time to bring it to Cabinet on Monday, but can it come to the following Cabinet? We've got time, haven't we? Full council's on the full council. Have we got time to include that decision? Because the sooner we make that decision, the easier it is for us as a group, if it can go onto the agenda. Just to add, we can't delay it till the December one because we had.
Well, should we take it offline? So let's
yes.
Take
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
So let me just. It's all right to speak.
Yeah, it's Mr. Perks.
Yeah, thank you. We've got the view of the committee now. So what we'll do with this is we'll provide, I take it the committee will provide an interim report and request from full council sort of leave to sort of look at further issues that have come out from their initial work. So if we proceed on that basis as officers, we'll work out how best to get that into full council on the 13th. But we'll sort that.
Thank you, because otherwise it'll delay us as a group as to what we can do. Thank you.
I'm sure it can be worked around offline, and even at last resort, it could be a urgent business or something like that. I'm sure we can work around. But yeah, it's come from the full council decision, so therefore it's right. It has to go back. So, and I think it's fortuitous, or it might be cunning plan that we've got a full council coming up on the 13th. So I think we've got a way forward on that. Thank you. I'm sure officers, well, as soon as the solution is agreed, officers will inform the committee at their earliest opportunity. Right then, we move on to item 9, which is minutes from the Climate Change Panel, which is on pages 11 to 14. The meeting of the panel was the 2nd of September 2025. Yeah. Are members happy that we note those minutes? Thank you. Right, item 10. We're looking at 4 items on the Cabinet of the 6th of October. I propose just to go through them in the order that are printed on the agenda, unless members have got a pressing concern that that order isn't helpful. Councillor Rice, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is quite the right moment to raise this. It might be better to raise it a bit later. But what I want to say is that I received my 276 pages of Cabinet papers yesterday lunchtime. In my opinion, that is not sufficient time before today's meeting to review those papers in full. I do wonder, given that this meeting is now on a Wednesday and it used to be on a Friday, I am still getting the Cabinet papers on the same day of the week, only instead of 3 days before, it's now 24 hours before, or less than 24 hours before. And I do wonder whether any of the arrangements in the background to produce these papers and get them into the post have been amended to allow for the fact that we now meet on a Wednesday and not a Friday.
Yeah, I'm going to say I think that was one of my concerns when we moved the meeting to the Wednesday. There was arguments either way to have the meeting on a Wednesday and Friday, and I wasn't fussed either way. Either one I was happy to go along with. But there are always pros and cons of doing one instead of the other. Because if we left till Friday, we would have more time to look at these papers, which is, I think, is right. But then there's less time to provide a response to Cabinet on the Monday that we do on the written ones. So they can look. So there are pros and cons, but I think your points are valid. I sort of like burnt the midnight oil on these to try and get some questions. So we have got some questions. But I think if we can get some feedback from officers on this, I'm more than happy. Councillor Little, would you want to come in?
Yes, please, thank you. I mean, I agree with Councillor Rice and you, Chair. I actually drove into Stratford on Monday lunchtime to pick up my copy. I went down to the print room. They had just finished printing it. It's not their fault because they only received them either very late on Friday or first thing on Monday morning. We've moved back the events. What we haven't moved back is the actual production time or giving officers time to do this. So whatever meeting goes before this with Cabinet to arrange these papers, that needs to move back in time as well. The whole thing needs shifting back. Otherwise, it's going to break. And I can't see the point of overview and scrutiny not doing a proper job. That's what we're here for, and we can't do a proper job unless we can really consult with these papers and ask questions upon them.
Councillor Rolfe, please.
In which case, can we start with the scrutiny protocol agenda item on the Cabinet? Because there are questions coming from that report that will affect how we as a group scrutinise with the time restraints and the paper restraints. So can we please bring that forward now and discuss that now, if that's okay with the rest of the committee?
Can I just bring... I'll bring...
Still got to make the point. Yeah, sorry, Chair. I've just got to make the point that the agenda is published online. If there are issues about looking online, then we could probably express post it to you, but it is online on the Friday, so it's giving you 5 days in advance before the OSC meeting.
Councillor Orcott, please. Oh, sorry, I need to call you Victoria, so I do apologise. I had to get you so name.
To be fair, Chair, you've called me worse. Can I say, sorry, I actually believe the papers were only published online at 9:45 Monday morning. that's when the email went out to say that they were online. That's when we received it. So again, even online, it's not always that easy. That still only gives us 2 days to go through, even with everything being online. It's still, we're supposed to be scrutinising this, which means going through the reports in detail. And for such large reports, it is just not enough time to do our job as a scrutiny committee. We need to do this justice, and when you're handed a report of 270 papers, whether it's online or on your doorstep, it's not enough time to do it. And I think, you know, we need a lot more than even 48 hours.
Yeah. Mr. Allison, do you want to come in, please?
I just want to comment in relation to the Monday morning email, Victoria, Councillor Alcock, thanks for raising that. The agenda was published on Friday as usual, but the email notification was delayed, and that was due to a technical system with our publishing provider. So I'm sorry about that, but it was kind of out of our control. But yeah, we resent that email as soon as we were aware there was an issue. Monday morning was the earliest we could do it.
Councillor Littlewood, then Councillor Rice, please.
Thank you. Yeah, publishing it online is one thing, but, you know, an A3 sheet on a small screen is worth, I mean, I'm sorry, I have to apologise for being 70-odd years old, and my eyesight ain't what it used to be. And working through an A3 sheet on a screen this side is just ridiculous. It's not, doesn't work, it's not practical. This is a very, very good medium, because not only can you actually see it, but you can move backwards and forwards, and you can cross-reference easily. So I accept that probably it's my incapacity that causes me to prefer the written word on page, but actually it's far, far better, because we can flick through this a damn sight faster than we can online. And I apologise for saying it, but I really think we want to make this job as easy as possible, so we can be as scrutinising as possible. Thank you.
I just first to comment, you don't look a day over 69, Councillor Littlewood. Secondly, I do agree with your point about looking at things online. I have had to do in the past, and it is quite challenging. Sometimes have it open on 2 machines to make it easier for myself. But I do find it quite challenging. The point about A3 in particular is a really pertinent one. And talking, not looking their age, I'll bring in Councillor Rice, please.
You're too kind. May I ask... May I ask, the Cabinet papers were published online last Friday. Have they always been published on the Friday, or is that day been put forward because our meeting has been brought forward by 2 days?
No, so the timeline for publishing papers for any meeting is statutory, so it's 5 clear days before. So it's always been, if the Cabinet's on a Monday, then the Friday before would be the dates published. Same with this OSC meeting. 5 clear days would have been last Tuesday, so that's when the papers were published for this meeting.
But that does cause us a problem, doesn't it? Because we are scrutinising the papers of a meeting that happens after hours.
Yeah, I think we'll have to. I was going to say suggest a task and finish working group on it, but I was being facetious. No, I do think that we perhaps have some discussions offline, see what we can do, and ideas from members. Councillor Alcock, please, you indicate again.
Yes, I'm just saying, page 17, item 4.7 of the scrutiny protocol, it does say members should therefore plan ahead of time what items are of importance and at least what lines of questioning they intend to take on Cabinet papers. We have no time.
Are we discussing this report now? Are we going straight into this report?
No, I think, Councillor Alcock, you're just discussing in principle. We won't discussing that. You were highlighting the fact that before we go on to discussing the protocol, this is one of the key things that we should be doing. So that was the general point rather than the scrutiny point. So we haven't got that. So I think that was just a general point. I think officers have probably got some feedback from ourselves about the situation, and I think if we can make this easier for ourselves, well, easier for councillors to do constructive scrutiny in the most efficient way, I think we've got to find some way around this. And I know sometimes the postal system can be delayed as well, so we are at the mercies and vagaries of the postal system as well. Mr. Brooks, do you want to come in?
Yeah, well, we can take this away and look at it. The fundamental issue is we can't sort of give you the papers before they've been completed and issued, which is on the Friday, as Mr. Allison sort of sets out, because that's the requirement. And prior to that, the papers are being worked on and prepared so the reports are finalised. That gives from Friday to the following Wednesday as a time window. I take Councillor Rice's point that if you don't get the papers to the Tuesday, that gives you very limited time. What we could potentially control, and the vagaries of this rural post system aren't helping us with this, is maybe we have to look at the papers will always be available online on the Friday. I take it it's difficult to read. We'd have to look at couriering the stuff out to people who need that. I think is the only way that we can look at it. Or you could look to move your meeting back to the Friday. The trouble with that, as we found with Councillor Johnson, is then it doesn't give us a chance to share the feedback with you prior to going to Cabinet on the Monday, because their meeting's at 10 o'clock and there's a limited window between this concluding often mid-afternoon on a Friday, and then Mr. Allison has to assemble that, get it circulated, and there's not much chance of comment there. So it's how we make best use of the time, but I'm happy to explore ways at which we could get the papers to you once they're printed on a Monday, if that's what the committee would like me to take away.
Councillor Rice, please.
Yeah, just a small thing, Tony. You say, yes, it's a legal requirement, but is that a absolute legal requirement, or is that a minimum requirement? In which case, the Cabinet papers could be published on the Thursday, or even the Wednesday. Surely it's provided it's before the Friday, is the key legal point.
Yeah.
I understand it is a legal requirement to publish them on those days. The other factor within that is we're still sort of preparing reports, and the work schedules are quite tight. It's getting the stuff finished, and what we wouldn't want to do is like a partial publication of agendas. But I'm happy to take it away and look at what we can do, but I didn't want to be unrealistic that we're going to be able to sort of provide them weeks in advance, because they don't exist. So we've got to try and sort of cut that time as effectively as we can. But I entirely take your point. If you're not getting the things to the Tuesday night, it's difficult for you to make constructive comments on them, Councillor Rice. So we'll take it away.
Right then, I think there's quite a bit of feedback on that, and we've had a agreement or commitment from Mr. Perks to try and make the situation as smooth as possible. So we've had a suggestion that we start with the scrutiny protocol on the Cabinet papers, and I'm happy to start with that. So that is, if you look at pages 9 to 22 on the full council Cabinet papers. Councillor Rolfe, please.
Thank you. So if we are looking at this scrutiny protocol, can you tell me who wrote this report and who had input into this report? Thank you.
It might help if I do a quick introduction, just to explain what the protocol is and what it sets out to do. Many councils, from the research that me and the team have done, have a scrutiny protocol in place or are in the process of implementing one. The statutory guidance on overviewing scrutiny from central government doesn't mandate a scrutiny protocol, but it advises that one can help to set things out in terms of processes and help with the relationship between Cabinet, Council and OSC, so that everyone's on the same page and understands what those processes are. Alongside that, the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny recommends that scrutiny protocol can be useful for those same reasons. When reviewing the statutory guidance, as I do on a regular basis, I picked up this as something that we didn't have in place at the moment, so set about speaking to my senior officers about drafting one. I drafted the protocol alongside the monitoring officer with input from Democratic Services Manager and Senior Democratic Services Officer, and the members that are relevant in their portfolio areas and their capacity as chair were consulted. So that includes Councillor Crump as chair of the OSC, Natalie Gist as the portfolio holder for law and governance, and the leader was also asked for input as well. What the protocol is setting out to do isn't to change what the processes are, between overview and scrutiny and cabinet, because those processes do already exist. It's really just seeking to set them out in writing so that it's clear, consistent, and transparent, so that everybody understands what the processes are. That goes for the public and for members. So this protocol is basically setting out things, how they are, as they've developed over time, so that we can stick to them.
Thank you. So, as a follow-up then, I feel it might have been pertinent to consult with members of the Scrutiny Committee before a final draft was put together, and that at the rough draft stage, we should have all been really consulted. We're the ones that have sat here, some of us for many, many years on scrutiny, and I do believe that we should have been asked for our input.
Councillor Johnston, then Councillor Wally-Hoggins. Yes, well, I'll bring the officers in.
I've, on a couple of occasions, asked questions about how particular cabinet items for discussion have been identified. In paragraph 4.2 on page 16, it refers to a meeting. Is that an innovation, or does that exist at the present time, and is that how things are decided? I do believe for scrutiny to have credibility, the Scrutiny Committee ought to be able to decide itself what it scrutinises. And if there are papers that we think we should be asking questions on, we should be able to do so and not be constrained by the phrase prioritised for consideration.
So, Chair, sorry, in hindsight, maybe, well, yes, we should have actually forwarded the draft document to members of OSC. So, but we did try and take the appropriate consultation with the relevant portfolio holders and the leader.
So I think it could be a question to your portfolio holder and the leader as well to raise your concerns as well about this. So I think that wouldn't be on, yeah. Do you want to comment on the second point?
Yeah, just on Councillor Johnston's question about the meeting, I remember you've answered this similar question before, so just to reiterate, there is a meeting that takes place as a sort of OSC pre-meet to mainly discuss cabinet items and which ones we're going to prioritise. The process as outlined in the protocol is that I go through the forward plan, assessing, trying, objectively as possible to assess what value scrutiny can add for each cabinet item. Based on public interest, the EOC's ability to influence the performance of the council in that area, a number of different things. Taking those assessments to the pre-meet, which the OSC chair, the leader, someone on behalf of the monitoring officer and the deputy chief executive attend, and that's where it's finalised. But you are right, OSC members should have a right, and indeed do have a right, to request items to go to the to be discussed at OSC. So as I've advised before, OSC members are welcome to look at the forward plan, as the rest of us do, and if there's items that they particularly want to be considered, then please feel free to email myself and the chair of the OSC and request that. Any councillor is welcome to do that and request an item to go to scrutiny.
I'll just bring Mr. Perkson on, please.
Can I follow up?
Just Tanya wants to clarify that point, and then I'll bring it back in date.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to say that ownership of the agenda of the OSC meeting is entirely within your gift as a committee. What this meeting is doing is Howard has a scrutiny protocol that analyses sort of where scrutiny is most effective, which I think is a national document. We present all that to the chair of your committee, and ultimately the chair decides what goes forward on the agenda, because we have to sort of balance the scrutiny of the cabinet items with the other things on your work programme to try and get the meeting to sort of fit into a sensible timescale. So there will be certain items that we'll be prepared to present to you, but as a committee you have the right to sort of question anything, and you can ask me on the day. It just gives us a bit more chance to prepare a report for you on the things that the chair feels are most pertinent for scrutiny, but we're certainly not seeking to keep anything from you. And yes, the ultimate decision isn't made by sort of officers or the executive, it's made by the chair of this committee. So, and based on sort of an objective protocol that Mr. Allison sort of runs through, each thing is scored, that's presented to the chair. we discuss it, and then generally the higher scoring things go through. But if there are feelings from the committees that topics that your chair is aware that you're particularly interested in, we would sort of make sure they're presented to you. But it gives us as officers a chance to make sure we've got the right people here. Like, for example, we've got Nick and people at the back here to present you the reports later, so you can get better quality scrutiny. That if you're welcome to ask me anything on the hoof, but you'll probably get my answer rather than the fully prepared one that we got here.
Do you want to follow up on David or not?
I'll look at the publication of the forward plan with more concern. Where's the timescale? Is the plan published before this meeting takes place, in which case members could influence the discussion that takes place in this group?
Yeah,
that needs to be built into, the public process, if you like. So
yeah, I wonder if
we know that's coming and we know what we've got to do.
So are you saying that the forward plan should be sent to us and we ask you as chair that it's put in this?
I don't think the full plan should be sent to you. I think the onus is on members of the committee we don't want to become overly burdensome on officers. Onus, we should have awareness of the full plan. So when's it? Yeah, go on.
So the forward plan, like the agendas for the meetings, published online, and all councillors get a notification of it. The forward plan is published at least 28 days before the meeting of the relevant cabinet. That's statutory. We have to do that. But we also, on that forward plan, we include items 3 months in advance. So those following two meetings, basically, those items can change. But for something to be considered, unless there's an exceptional circumstances and it falls under urgent items, urgent business, basically everything has to be published 28 days in advance. So you have at least 28 days before the cabinet meeting to look at what items are going to that meeting, in most cases.
I've got Councillor Wally Hoggins, then Councillor Littlewood, please. Do you indicate, Sarah, please?
Yeah, I mean, we all recall what happened at the last Overview and Scrutiny Committee to do with the climate change minutes from their meeting. It became quite uncomfortable and quite unbearable when we questioned an item on that. So actually, it's quite interesting that this scrutiny protocol has come forward to this meeting today. I can see a bit of a link there, but what I want to know from officers is this in any way, is this scrutiny protocol, is this in any way designed to dumb down the scrutiny process that we have within this chamber? Because ultimately, I'm afraid that whoever is leading the council, we are the sort of, if you like, the stopgap here between the public. They can come here and ask the questions themselves. We have that right here to do that. And I think that we all work really hard. We've had meetings here to discuss, not getting the papers in advance enough in order to do that. But is this a way of dumbing down who, what and how we scrutinise the documents? Because I really need to know that, actually. Because I'm a bit flabbergasted that we've actually got this. It wasn't as if we weren't actually doing our job properly in the first place. Thank you.
Mr. Perkson, please.
Yes, just for clarity, absolutely not. There is no intention to sort of try and diminish the role of the Scrutiny Committee. You provide a valuable role and nobody would dissent from that. And I don't think there's anything, certainly not intentionally within this protocol, it's not one I've drafted myself, but having read it, that looks to sort of diminish your role at all, more to confirm your role as an important part of the democratic process. So it's certainly not intended to diminish the role of scrutiny. No, I've not picked up as an agenda at all from anywhere.
I've got Councillor Littlewood and then Councillor Alcott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid my questions are on the same theme. When I read this quickly because of time constraints, and my first impression, particularly with Section 4, was, hang on a second, the whole purpose of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee has independence from any political party. And this seems to suggest that members of Cabinet officers would be influencing the selection of items for discussion. And I think the way to get around that is under the aim and the principles that it is quite clearly stated that the OSC remains independent to any of outside influences, as it were, whilst keeping open ears to public concerns. So I think this is, regrettably, this is final draft. I wonder whether that really is set in stone, and whether or not some parts of this document, which, if you have to have a document, a protocol, then so be it, but that it needs to be quite clear the real purpose of overview scrutiny. It's listed in as an aim in section 1, but I think it needs to be quite clear that the independence and the ability to scrutinise all aspects of the workings of this council are not inhibited in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. I will bring you in shortly, Councillor Orcock. I've just got one point to bring. I'm not putting you back on purpose. This committee has the ability and the right to make suggestions or recommendations to Cabinet, either in the written one that we do or my verbal one that I bring to Cabinet on Monday, if they've got concerns about this process and protocol. So we have still got the opportunity to raise these concerns, or potentially ask them to defer it until we look at it in more detail. Or not be adopted. So just thoughts on that. Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Little? Then I'll bring Councillor Orcock in.
Following on from your comments and the nods from officers, I think we would be doing our job properly to defer this for scrutiny and suggestion of the text. If it operationally causes no problems, I think that would be a pragmatic and sensible way forward.
So, Councillor, are we happy? So the proposal is that we ask Cabinet to defer a decision on the paper on Monday in light of our concerns. Then we would like potentially to amend some parts of the protocol. Yes. Is that a good? Hey, people are agreeing. I'm getting worried. I must be ill. So we've got to. How would be okay to? We've got some for the minutes and for my update on to Cabinet. Councillor Orcock, sorry. I just thought that Binsby sort of like good, but yeah, I'm sure you've got something extra to add, and we'll welcome that. Thank you.
You know, this is going to be a document. In a way, I sort of disagree with what Councillor Wally Hoggins said, because actually I think with some parts in this, we can scrutinise more, but only if we have the opportunity to see the papers. With what was being said about, you know, when legally papers have to be issued, etc., as open scrutiny, we should be in that 5 days prior as a minimum, because of how important this committee is. And it almost says that in 4.7. That's a bit I'd like to see expanded to ensure that we can have papers that we are going to scrutinise it properly, as we all want to do, is having them that at least minimum of 5 days before, and not necessarily just online. People, we've several said it already, I'm another one who'll say that reading huge reports online I find very difficult. And I think that has to also be taken into account. That, yeah, legally, that's one tick box, but to properly do our jobs here today, we could do with, we may need to speak to our residents. Can't go to our residents and go, by the way, in 12 hours, we've got a meeting, which I think you might like to come and speak at. We're not doing the justice to the residents by not being able to scrutinise everything in a proper, timely fashion. But now we're going to defer it, then I'll just come back and say it all again.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I know you have raised, you have been consistent and raised the point about reviewing reports online and how, to be equal and equality, it can be challenging for some people to do these things online. So in Spority, I find it much easier to have the papers in front of me. So I think that's the point. And the other point as well is that we're having meetings, and I have had confirmed by us, is that whilst we've had these, for example, these 4 items on as the OSC agenda, we've also have included at previous times things that weren't particularly on the agenda but felt was relevant to be discussed. Some of it is down to time constraints, but I've tried to be as flexible as possible when members have raised concerns, particularly at the last minute. So I think that's right. Mr. Nash, please. Yeah, I think, again, I think Mr. Nash has just been realistic and pragmatic by saying that we can raise our concerns with Cabinet, but ultimately it is up to them to make the decision to defer or vote it through. But we will have raised our concerns. Thank you. So, right, we've done the scrutiny protocol. In the spirit of openness and cooperation, who wants to choose the next one we want to speak to? Because I'm more than happy to
Appreciate it if you could pick one that I've got officers sat waiting to present first, because they've got quite a lot to do. So if we could go with either Indigo or the 5-year land supply.
Come on, who wants to choose them? 5-year land supply. Mr. Careford, come on down. Right then, obviously that is as part of the Cabinet papers, and that is on page 83 to 110. So, like a quick synopsis, and then members will have some questions. I have, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll just introduce Graham Nelson, who's our interim local plans manager, who's been leading on this piece of work. In summary, we can no longer demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing that we are required to do. We are not alone in that. Lots of district councils are in the same boat. And this paper that's going to Cabinet on Monday is setting out what proactive action we can take as a district council to regain that position. I think the 2 simple messages, and I'll let Mr. Nelson add any points of detail or any particular questions members have. I think firstly, this is not an overnight fix. The scale of the shortfall is significant. It will take some time, months if not years, to remedy. And the second point, that fundamentally the only real remedy is the granting of additional consents for residential housing development. The 5-year supply is a slight oddity. It always has been, in that we are responsible for demonstrating it, but we have little control over the actual construction and build out of homes. The only thing we can really do is affect the number of consents and the timing of those consents. So fundamentally, this council is going to need to grant additional planning consents to regain control in its 5-year housing land supply, and that then enables the core strategy local plan to be given full weight again in the planning balance. So we're in National Planning Policy Framework, I think it's paragraph 11 territory. That's the tilted balance as the planning jargon, and that's the tools that we're now using to determine planning applications. I'll leave it there, I think, if that's okay, but I don't know, Mr. Nelson, if you want to add anything, or members have any questions. Thank you.
Very briefly, the only thing I think I would add to that introduction is the fact that the report that you're seeing is very much still, to some extent, a work in progress, that you've got a potential action plan that has been pulled together comparatively quickly. Just bring members' attention, clearly partly prompted by the Borden Hill appeal decision that we got, that we received that less than a month ago still. And there's a number of parts of work in progress that are summarised within the report. That's still going on. It's quite a movable feast. And clearly part of the report that we're taking to Cabinet on Monday proposes a number of measures for ongoing scrutiny, consideration, involvement of members in it, and ultimately reporting back. But that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction.
We'll bring Councillor Orphan short and Councillor Little. That was just one of my questions. You sort of answered that, Graham. Thank you. That as it's a moving feast, as it's been done, had to be done quite quickly. You know, we like to be regularly updated on any changes when some of the plans come to fruition, because you've got a series of options and which ones are going forward. So ongoing scrutiny was the right phrase there, so well done, thank you. And we're happy to receive ongoing regular reports on this, because it is such an important subject for the whole of the district. Councillor Rolfe, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really confused about this, because are you saying that we as a council, or certainly some of us as backbenchers, were not aware that we didn't have a 5-year land supply until the appeal of Borden Hill? Did you know we didn't? And how long before that appeal came through did you know that we did not have a 5-year land supply? And if you did know beforehand, was it told to anybody at all before that appeal? Because it just seems to be like, lost the appeal, we don't have a land supply. I don't get it.
Okay, I'll try and answer that as best I can. Clearly, the council published a statement of its land supply position earlier this year. That was, I think, early June that came out. Sorry, is that better?
Just imagine, no, I wasn't going to say you're shouting at the football. Just imagine you're shouting at me, and Councillor Rolfe will then test the volume. Is that okay, Kate?
If I speak like this, is that okay for you? Sorry, I don't, I'm slightly unaccustomed to your microphone setup. So, in June of this year, the council updated its land supply position and published a formal statement around it. It clearly took a lot of technical work to do that, and that claimed a 5.06 year supply, which was the basis of the contesting over the land supply issue at the appeal that was heard shortly following that in the earlier part of the summer. So until you'd received the planning inspector's report, the council had published a statement that said it had a 5-year land supply plus.
So, sorry, but how did we get it so wrong then? Between June and August, how did we get it so wrong?
I'm not sure that's a fair summation of the situation. That it's not quite that binary. As I say, quite a large number of authorities have found itself in a similar thing. There was complicated factors around the relevance of your local plan, as opposed to the updated figures the government came out with in December last year, which years they might apply to. And even though the appellant in the appeal claimed one thing, the inspector didn't side with them on all the matters that were raised. So I think I would describe the fact that certainly my initial review, wasn't surprised at the findings of the appeal hearing that came out, but there was clearly a range of possible outcomes, and I didn't think that the District Council's position around land supply that it tried to defend was any way unreasonable. So it was a process that we had to go through.
So I will bring Mr. Kerford in, but just perhaps a summary is that the government potentially moved the goalposts whilst the match was still being played. But is that a fair analogy, or am I talking out my hat?
The change that the government introduced in December 2004 through the revised methodology, 24, was so significant in relation to your district and how that's changed. It more than doubled your housing requirement overnight. You can put whatever analogy you want to describe
in effect,
it.
they've more than moved the goalpost, they've probably moved the pitch.
But it became a very, very difficult thing to manage from that point.
Mr. Careford, you didn't have to use the football analogies. You feel free to use whichever ones you want. You should just give us a brief summary, please.
Yes, fundamentally, as Mr. Nelson said, the change has occurred because of the change in the government methodology for how we calculate housing needs. So we've got a new standard method. So obviously we're aware that those numbers increased significantly. Calculating 5-year supplies has been said, it's not a straightforward exercise, and it involves assumptions about certain aspects. So we always knew that the position was going in one direction, and there was a briefing for members early summer in advance of the appeal decision about the likely outcomes of where we were going. I think the point is, and this is the issue with planning appeals, they cut across, if you like, various timescales. So in the autumn, when the Borden Hill decision was refused, the government hadn't confirmed what the final standard method was. We hadn't had the final NPPF. And I think it would have been there would have been a risk to have made a decision on that application based on draft government guidance. So the appeal, the decision to refuse Borden Hill, I think, was a reasonable one, and we've not had costs awarded against us, although we lost that appeal. So I think our position has been a reasonable one. We always knew that, as I said, the direction of travel. We thought we had more wriggle room. That's been proven not to be the case. But I think, in a way, that's slightly missing the point about, the fact is that whether we, as its district council, published a position to say that we no longer have a 5-year supply, or the outcome was through the appeal, it's the same outcome. We don't have a 5-year supply. Whether that happened earlier in the year or as a result of the appeal decision. So either way, it's been the fundamental shift in housing numbers. So obviously we have a current, the previous housing target was 730 per annum. It's now 1,112. The previous standard method was giving us a figure of, I think, 603 or 500-600. So it's a significant shift, and fundamentally that is the reason, coupled with changes to the NPPF. And as I say, we are not the only district in this position. Lots of rural districts across the country, I think over half, are in a similar position to us.
Just so I'm clear of people who want to speak at the moment, I've got Councillor Littlewood, Councillor Alcock and Councillor Wally Hoggins. Is there anybody else? Councillor Rice? Right, so I've got 4. So we'll go with that order of Councillor Littlewood, then Councillor Alcock, Councillor Wally Hoggins, then Councillor Rice. And if I do get distracted and get out of order, throw something at me and I'll put you back in the right order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I start by congratulating Mr. Nelson on a very clear and informative report. And indeed, just go to section 7, which is the conclusion and reasons for the recommendation. That gives us all the information that we need. With regards to how we got here, well, we're here. And that's all that really matters now. We need to manage our way out of it. And there are, within this report, set out some very strong and sensible suggestions, revisiting villages for their NDPs and their preferred sites is not least of them, but we need to be clear that NDPs that are old and over 5 years old will have little or no weight, it's, as I understand it. So we need to put provisions in to encourage parishes to revisit their NDPs and get them up to date. Otherwise, they will be a little bit disappointed and feel cheated about the time and money and effort that they put into producing their NDPs. So there are tools listed here that we can take. There are internal tools that is to speed up or reduce the time for determination wherever possible. Revisit old applications. I know of at least one for 31 houses that is now into its 4th year and being held up by, in my opinion, silly things like access over a village green in this particular instance. These need to be looked at sensibly and pragmatically, and we need to bring these forward. And if there is in one parish with 31 houses, I'm sure there are many more that have got some. No, even if there are 10, that's 300 houses. Doesn't actually go to the real hub of the matter is that even with all the measures that have been suggested within this report, it is likely, the worst case scenario is that we are going to be 1,420 homes short. That means that hard decisions are going to have to be made, and I think we need to extend this report and really look hard at what we can do, and that needs to be including probably the chair of the planning committee as well to be involved in those decisions. So I go back to where I started, congratulate the officer for producing this clear and concise report, and I think it gives us the tools and the platform to actually make a constructive management strategy going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lockhart, please.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies. I possibly should have declared an interest in this as I'm Chair of Stratford-on-Avon Town Council Planning Consultative Committee. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll just note that one. Thank you.
It's interesting to say about the neighbourhood development plans. It's really difficult at the moment. I know because we're trying to start updating ours. Is the fact it's got to fit in with the South Warwickshire local plan, as well as trying to fit in with the housing supply and trying to get everything to dovetail together in a reasonable time frame is actually proving rather difficult. And of course it's made difficult the fact that there is no grants available for town and parish councils to update their plan, which means they're having to find the costs themselves. And not all town and parishes can actually afford that. And it's something that is going to be detrimental, not to them who are either needing more houses or not wanting more houses. Not having the weight of a neighbourhood development plan behind them is actually going to cause some long-lasting ripples in this effect. And that is something we do take on. Because we know what happens in situations. We've been in a similar situation before, is we're just going to have developments coming in and applying immediately because of this situation and not giving us the opportunity as a council, as a town council and parishes, to actually be able to come forward and insist on things like the added infrastructure that is vital, especially around an area like Stratford-on-Avon. It makes your jobs very difficult, and I do understand that. We just find it very frustrating that we're in this situation at all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to say I think from I sense your frustration, and I get it as well from other different towns and parishes about the pain they've gone through to get their neighbourhood plan. Bearing in mind, towns and parish councillors are volunteers. They have to, in many cases, have external support, experts, consultants to produce this plan. And whilst in the initial neighbourhood plan they would got a grant towards it, but now that you're saying the grant isn't. I think probably in the roundabout way we were both asking what help and support or clarification can officers give to towns and parish councils in the light of the changes of the 5-year housing and land supply, working in with South Warwickshire local plan, and is anything they can provide for and what help is available really. I think we've sort of like alluded that between us, haven't we, I think.
we are looking at that, and discussions are going on internally with Cabinet members about how we can best do that.
Before I bring Councillor Wally-Hoggins in, we are moving towards the 3-hour time limit. I'm just wondered whether members would still be happy to agree to carry on past the 3 hours. We have got a couple of other items to agree on there. So whilst we've got officers here, I'm more than happy to propose it. As any councillor towards second, all in favour? Thank you. Right then, Councillor Wally-Hoggins, please.
Yeah, I get the development plans for villages, obviously really important, or has been, but really I think we need some openness now about what are the implications going to be for our villages and towns. I'm thinking of, say, Shipston-on-Stour. There's an application in the ether at the moment for a considerable number of homes on the other side of the river. I've got a meeting about that on Friday, because it will have an impact on the communities that I represent. And I think we've just got to be open here, because it is a lot of work for people. You know, is a 16 house development, is that actually just going to get nodded through? I think we need to be really honest with people now and say, you know, we're in a really difficult position here, because this means that this gives everybody a carte blanche for an appeal, does it not? To say that we haven't got enough houses, we haven't got enough land supply, therefore these houses need to be granted. If I was being really cynical, I would say that this was always going to be the central government's plan to ensure that there is building work going on in all over desirable areas. So I think we need to be really honest here, because all of us spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with planning, you know. And John, if I might say, you know, this is just another level of stress for your department. And I want you to know that I feel your pain here, because all that work done for that 5-year plan has basically, well, I can't say the word, it's just disappeared. And I feel desperate for the residents that this is going to affect, really. But, you know, this is massive, and it's not, as you say here, there isn't an elastoplast quick fix to it. This is just a carte blanche for an appeal, and we know exactly what happened the last time. It's like an awful feeling of deja vu. Do we have the resources within this district to cope with this and the surge of planning applications that we're undoubtedly going to get now? Thank you.
Mr. Caffey, please.
Thank you. And yes, I mean, what has happened is essentially overnight that we've gone from needing to deliver 730 homes per annum to delivering over 1,100, and you know that is the nub of it, and that's why I want to be quite honest and open with members, so that residents understand the only way out of that is the granting of additional consents. There will be significant building across the district sooner than we were anticipating. Bear in mind that these, you know, the 1,100 figure was a figure we're promoting in the South Warwickshire Local Plan, so we knew we were moving in that direction. The issue here is that you know, it applies from now, or certainly applied from the 1st of April. So I think the message to residents and communities is that, yes, you do need to brace yourself for significant development. There is a massive impact on resources, and what this report does highlight that. There is significant fee income, and the graph 1 in the report does highlight that. Just to clarify, that's only the income from major residential schemes. That's not the entirety of the departmental income. So we are seeing an income in planning fee as well. So it's being able to deploy those resources to meet that demand. I think the message I also want to make clear is, as you said, Councillor Wally-Hoggins, we have been in a similar situation sort of 10, 12 years ago. I think the difference is we know the scale of the gap, whereas before I think it's fair to say that we were still debating what the housing requirement should be. We know what it is now. And what we have to avoid as a district council is planning by appeal, because they significantly increase the costs. I think it was over £2 million we spent last time defending fruitlessly appeals. And the other thing is the impact on residents, because if we do negate our responsibilities, then we're in a weaker position to negotiate on things like design and infrastructure and 106 contributions, planning conditions. So if we can be proactive with development schemes, it does give us some semblance of control. I mean, we do get a better scheme. So the worst case scenario would be that we're dealing with lots of appeals. I think so members and residents do need to understand that they're going to be faced with significant development in their villages, in the towns, and that is as a result of government policy. And I think it is deliberate. There is the government have said quite categorically they want to build 1.5 million within Parliament. This is a way of achieving that. And we're not alone in that. I know that's no crumb of comfort, but it does contextualise that point really. But I think the key point here is being ready to deal with the situation we're in, undertake these measures to show we're trying to be proactive and do what we can to regain control as quickly as possible.
Councillor Rice, please.
Thank you, Chair. The phrase movable feast has already been used, and I imagine that all the numbers in this report will be completely different in 6 or so months' time when various speculative developments receive approval because they can't be refused. But I've got a couple of, well, a detailed question and a general question, but I'm going to make it specific to my ward because it's the easiest way for me to frame it. The detailed question is 1.11.2. I don't understand, at least I'd rather you explain to me, there are 2,285 homes minimum to restore the 5-year housing land supply. It is not possible to quantify a precise level of additional supply, and it could be 3,500 to 4,000 homes. Why is that? Does that assume some kind of shortfall in the near term? In other words, the situation is going to get worse before it gets better?
In short, the answer to that last question is yes. It's going to get worse before it gets better. If you read the detail of the Borden Hill appeal decision, the inspector has opined differently on different aspects of land supply and the need. So he has allowed the council to assume a certain level to carry forward into the land supply figure, a certain level of the previous over delivery, less than the council wanted, but it was at 20% of that figure. And he has also allowed the figure that was based in March of 2024 to have 1 year of the 5-year supply be drawn from the previous core strategy lower housing number and not the government specified local housing need that was produced in December of 2024. Sorry, that's a bit anorak on nerdy time, but both of those methodological assumptions that the inspector allowed in Borden Hill will not be allowed on future updates when the base date of the 5 years will move next time to March 25, i.e. after the December 24 update. So that's a slightly boring technical way of telling you, yes, it'll get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And that, because you're right also, it is partly a movable feast. It will depend as Mr Careford says, frankly, on the number of planning permissions that are issued in the interim. So it means you can't put a precise figure on the shortfall, what it will be by the time you recover it, but 3,500 to 4,000, which is the thing, was the figure we got through I hope a process that's at least it's not a precise science, but it's as credible as we can get, and I hope you sort of understand it when you see the different building blocks set out in the report.
Thank you. So second question. Yeah, my second question is actually 1.10.7, and it's a word I'm going to have trouble pronouncing, I think, prematurity. And I'm going to ask it in relation to my ward, which has a strategic growth site being discussed at the moment, which will more than double the size of Henley. And I take it from 1.10.7 that even if that site were chosen, it would not stop the other 11 sites, or whatever it is, 10, 11, 12 sites around Henley, from being approved, should obviously the conditions of the application meet, you know, the necessary requirements.
I struggle to answer that specifically around the circumstance of the particular village that you're mentioning, because I'm
well,
not,
if you could just do it perhaps in terms of strategic growth sites.
Generality,
yeah.
The government guidance, again, has changed a number of years ago on this, but is really quite clear. So the South Warwickshire local plan is still a way off submission. Certainly at the moment, I think if development management colleagues choose to refer to that as a reason for refusal of any planning application, they're very much verging on territory that would lead to an award of costs against the local authority for being unreasonable. So I quoted a bit from the government guidance in the report. It is really clear. You can't refuse things on prematurity at this stage. So to a certain extent, they'll have to make the decision sort of blind to the emerging stuff in the South Warwickshire local plan. However, there's clearly a considerable evidence base has already been prepared in relation to the South Warwickshire local plan. Some of that's published, it's prepared to nationally recognised guidance. That information may be material in its own right, but it can't have the status associated with being part of the local plan associated with it. But the mantra of development management is each case needs to be considered on its own merits. So apart from making out the point that the emerging stuff in the South Warwickshire local plan by definition will carry virtually no weight at the moment, then some of that other material may affect decisions that you make, particularly when it comes to strategic growth locations, because the art and the science here is that the district is facing a pressing shortfall with regards to delivery in the next 5 years. You have to ask yourself the question, is if a site is being promoted solely because you cannot demonstrate that you've got a supply of deliverable sites in that 5 years, what contribution would a very major strategic site make to that? Because they will take time to deliver. So where you are more vulnerable in terms of speculative proposals will probably be at the smaller end of the scale, where the industry can demonstrate, you give me planning permission for this, I'll be able to build this site out and complete it within that 5-year period, contributing to the level of shortfall that you've got. Through the work on the South Warwickshire local plan, 5 or 6 years' time, you should have an ample supply of sites to meet needs. It's in that intervening time, over the next 5 or 6 years, you've got the difficulty in addressing.
Quick one. So I think I've understood what you've said. And obviously, deliverability is the key thing here. However, will there be a difference between where we sit today with strategic growth sites and where we sit perhaps in 6 months' time after a decision has been made which strategic growth sites are likely to be included in the South Warwickshire local plan?
With regards to that particular text of the MPPF and the argument about prematurity, even if the council has resolved to submit a plan with a site in it, it would still get caught by that. But in principle, as a plan progresses closer to adoption, its materiality increases through to planning decisions. So it's not quite as binary as saying that wouldn't make any difference. I think it would, but you still need to read it through the context of the MPPF. The faster that the South Warwickshire local plan can move through the process will support the measures in the action plan to regain control, frankly.
Mr. Carford.
Thank you. I think the nub of the point is that, yes, what could happen is that, if you like, decisions about strategic sites are taken for us in the sense of they happen before the South Warwickshire local plan comes forward. Where that's the case, obviously the proposals on the South Warwickshire local plan will take that into account accordingly. So that we wouldn't lose out, but yes, it may be they're coming forward perhaps sooner than we would desire, essentially. I think the other point I just wanted to make, members, and I think Councillor Willie Hoggins may have referenced it, was although the situation we're in is a difficult one, I wouldn't want members to think it's just carte blanche. It isn't. Every application needs to be assessed on its own merits. It's just that the test or that assessment is no longer solely the local plan policies, it's the MPPF, and that's, if you like, a lower bar, and the wording looking at paragraph 11, so it's you should be granting applications unless it's significant and demonstrable, the harm is significant and demonstrably outweighs the benefits. So the balance is tilted in favour of applications. That's not to say there won't be cases where we think we should refuse schemes, but they will be fewer and far between because that balance is tilted slightly.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I'll come in now. I've got a couple of things. Mr. Nelson, I don't mind nerdy and Anorak because it shows you know the subject in ultimate detail, so I think that's really good, and it's been demonstrated by your answers so far, so thank you for that. Mine will be in a couple of areas to do with resources. Page 89, 1.10.12, about the document that Cornwall have published, Presumption in Favour of Sustainable Development, which sets out the policies, etc. It's basically what sort of effect will that have? What resources would we need to do that, both in terms of financial and staffing? And it mentions about consultation to carry any weight. So just a timescale on that, how would that be sort of like a benefit of sort of a quicker win than some of the other options?
Certainly that's one of the measures in the action plan that we would expect to see brought forward sooner rather than later, obviously subject to cabinet endorsement next week. Because there is a model for such work to be produced, I would imagine that's a thing where you've got an existing level of resource in-house. It would be capable of preparing a draft of that document within a matter of weeks, if not months, and then consultation would follow. Presumably might get complicated in terms of getting public engagement over the Christmas break, but I frankly think, and I probably ought to caveat that we're working out at the moment a detailed project plan to help some of our resource planning and timetabling on these matters, but just to give you a feel for that, I would have thought that the report, in terms of about to report back to Cabinet by the end of March, I would have imagined by that stage you would have probably been able to not only produce the draft document, do the consultation, report back. So I would hope that you'd be able to have that report for Cabinet to finally endorse that interim policy statement to be finalised within that sort of time frame.
Brilliant. And then my second one, again, it's basically to do with 5.2. Obviously, progressing with the South Warwickshire local plan, additional planning policy resources will be required to monitor both the 5-year housing land supply and work proactively to identify sites without diluting the resource delivered to the South Warwickshire local plan. Yeah, makes sense. It seems to indicate where the funding is coming from in terms of application numbers, and I believe Mr. Kevin mentioned the major, the income's based on major applications rather than the smaller ones. So again, there's terms of income and also resilience about that figure. My concern is that I think Mr. Kerford mentioned 60% of other districts and boroughs being in a similar position to ourselves, not on the 5-year housing land supply. So I think staffing, planning officers may, other local authorities may be contemplating employing additional staff. So, and that's just not in the West Midlands, I would assume that would be nationally. So there's potentially, will there be enough people available to fit those? Will they come at a premium? And so that's a couple of things. And in 5.2.5, you can tell I read this, and I've got my papers in advance. One of the potential log jams is responses from partners, statutory consultees. And I can imagine from the county, from a highways point of view, from the flooding point of view, just so it potentially would be no good us getting extra staff in, making super quick decisions, and then there's a blocking logjam at one of our partners. So again, would one of the options be potentially providing additional funding to external to ensure that the logjam's removed? So that was just a thought. It might be, cool, what's he on about, the silly old devil?
If Mr. Careford wishes to correct me on any of this, what I'm about to tell you, then feel free. Clearly, planning profession at the moment, it's somewhat mixed picture, but generally the number of people able at short notice to come into authorities to assist with this sort of work is under pressure. There's no doubt about it. So, but the market still works. I think I would describe it as there's still people available to do that job. You're right, it might squeeze up prices over time, but I would comment that you're still an attractive employer, so you're able to compete
You were just going to say I was still attractive there, so I was going to say thank you for that.
So you are well placed both geographically and because of the nature of your council to attract that people. So I don't think it's a manageable challenge, but it's one you are well placed to manage. The other point you made about statutory consultees is something we have frankly been discussing already, about whether there may be an option to try and strike deals with those individual statutory consultees that will invariably involve some form of planning performance agreement. So we may look at paying them in return for prompt and fully engaged advice to allow quicker decisions to be made. I think I would describe it as a measure of on the table, but you need to treat it with care because clearly if there is any looking at that arrangement, you need to make frankly damn sure that you get delivery in response to that and you don't end up paying people additional money just to give you the same old service.
Precisely, yeah. I'm glad to see you've sort of like validated a lot of the points, and you are considering thinking outside the box to try and help potential logjam issues. And talking about care, we've got Mr. Careford who will sort these things out for us. So, John, do you want to come in, please?
Well, just to add to Mr. Nelson, yes, and we're having dialogue with County in particular on that sort of issue. I think it's also County Council appreciating the implication of what's happening, particularly in Stratford District. I'm not sure it's such a significant issue elsewhere in the county, but we have seen a significant ramping up of applications. So I think they have to appreciate the prioritisation, urgency, and the importance of that, and make sure that they are deploying their resources accordingly. But to say we are exploring those discussions because the worst situation I think would be a non-determination appeal where we've had to we haven't made a decision because we're still awaiting comments from a statutory provider. So and I think that the key point, and this is why the administration were keen that we did took a paper to Cabinet to air these issues, is to show that what we can do as a council to be proactive. Obviously, there are examples, Cornwall Council, where they've also been proactive. I'm sure there's examples where councils aren't doing this sort of thing, and they're just saying, okay, well, we'll be reactive when we deal with applications. But by being proactive, setting out a series of measures, as Mr. Nelson's done in his report, it is showing to the industry, to residents and to the inspectorate, we are trying to do what we can. And I said at the beginning that our remit in this is relatively limited. But if we can show that what we're doing all we can, then it does put us in the strongest possible case or position to move forward. If I can just draw members' attention to recommendation 2, perhaps just to target the report. Obviously, you've got, I think, 15 measures that we're sort of thinking about, and it's just really whether members of this committee have any thoughts on any of those that you're not particularly comfortable with. There are perhaps one or two that perhaps have less merit, but I just wanted to make members aware of that recommendation in case you hadn't spotted it. Thank you.
Any members want to comment on that before I bring Councillor Littleward in? You indicate you wanted to...
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Actually, my question was with regards to the consequence of bringing statutory consultees, etc. But you answered that question. But it does raise that you have got all of these different, the 15 recommendations, 14 recommendations. Presumably you will implement each one of those in turn and look at the practicalities with internal and external sources. And I would hope, Chair, we could have that as a report back, please, on progress on a regular basis, because that would make life easy. But one of the things that you do talk about in the report, and this probably underlines the difficulty of the position that we find ourselves in, one of the things that could be done would be to truncate build-out times. So it was within the 5-year period, but also completion times. At the moment, you have 3 years from breaking ground to complete. And that, I understand, looking at the MPPF, that could be reduced, and the government is happy for that to be reduced significantly, maybe to 6 months. That's probably impractical. But how that will then lead to negotiation at the time of applications. So could that actually work against us if we're not careful? I mean, is it possibly a suggestion to consider that rather than have individual officers negotiating on such things, that we have a team who can make rapid decisions independently and make a suggestion, so that the work of negotiation doesn't stop the work of completing planning?
Perhaps if I can just come in before Mr. Nelson. I think, so let's say AP9, which is about short-dated consents. And I think, again, this is the benefit of being proactive. It's whether we can almost set out and dictate that a shorter commencement period is the new norm across the board, rather than it be negotiated on a case-by-case basis. So that's something we're exploring, because I suppose the risk if we can't do that is then it's, well, why would a developer necessarily agree to that? And then it may not be as effective. So there are some, I suppose, these measures at this stage, these are ideas, these are concepts. We need to really work out the detail. But something like a short-dated consent is, as you say, Councillor Littlewood, the MPPF does allow it. So I think it's how can we use that to its most powerful extent to enable we get the real benefit of, if you've got a consent, we can say that we can maximise the delivery within the 5-year period.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, the counter pressure on, particularly for large developments, is pure commercial pressures. They don't want to release because that suppresses the price, and also they need to demonstrate that they're in control of the finances, as it were. So it might work on small sites, but I was really wonder what the practicality of that. We can't really rely on that too much in the larger sites, and of course the irony is that those are the sites we really need them to come to fruition soonest. But so maybe we need to think about that, and the strategy might be to look more favourably on smaller deliverable sites within the period.
Mr. Nelson, I could see you're itching to come in on that one.
Well, I wasn't saying itching to come in, but I mean, I think you make a good point, and I think the interim policy statement that we're talking about gives us a scope to actually express an opinion or an attitude on behalf of the authority in relation to that, and that will, I think, help the point of individual officers doing negotiations if there's a framework within which to have it. I think the other point that is relevant to note about this is clearly when Steve Reid took over as Secretary of State for Housing, he gave a speech that was headlined about Build, Baby, Build, and he promised a blitz of further measures of planning reform due in the autumn. Some of those measures they've trailed as being assisting local authorities in helping some of these discussions, giving them slightly more tap powers in their toolbox to require delivery on consented sites within a particular time frame. So we'll need to keep our eyes open and watch that space.
Brilliant. Councillor Worley-Hoggins, I'll let you have the last question. I think we've...
Yeah, sorry, I'm sure I'm not alone in the fact that I'm actually sitting here mentally working out some of the planning applications that I've seen and thought, why didn't that get permission, to be honest, that would have contributed towards those houses. Can you give there's two questions here. Can you give an indication of any more planning applications that you are in the appeal process, who you think are likely to be granted permission? Will that be a significant number of houses? And with the benefit of hindsight, do you wish, as an authority, that is it worth contacting some of these developers to say, yeah, put that application in again, because this time around it's probably likely to get permission? That's really it.
So we are reassessing all the current appeal cases to see whether, in light of this position, our reasons for refusal are still valid, and the relevant ward member will be consulted and notified of if we are changing our position and no longer seeking to defend those reasons for refusal. So that's happening anyway, and I think there's a few hundred homes that could come forward on that basis. Yeah. Yes, and then well, not in hindsight, but one of the other measures in here proposed is to liaise with promoters and seek to encourage them to consider submitting applications if we think those sites may have merit, and that's not to circumvent or prejudge an outcome, but it's again drawing their attention to the fact that the context has changed. So again, it's us being proactive and doing what we can to try and plug the gap as quickly as possible. But I think the key point is that, yeah, the decisions we've made have all been reasonable in the context of the local plan we have. That has a strategy for setting out how it will manage development, and it was managing a certain quantum of development. As I've said, fundamentally, that quantum has significantly increased. I think the frustration is that we hoped we had more time to bring forth the new plan and to do it in that way. That's not proven to be the case. So we need to deal with the new context we're in, and as I said, the lower bar that's set by the MPPF, unfortunately. But yeah, every application will be assessed on its own merits. And we need to, I think, as a council, ensure we're proactive and positive to those development proposals.
I think we'll bring this to a close now. I just think in answer to the point Mr. Kerford raised about recommendation 2, I don't think at this stage we can identify anything, action plan measures that we don't want to be considered to be pursued further. I think that the point that Councillor Littlewood raised about reviewing and reporting back how the action plan is going is a reasonable one, and we would monitor that and then potentially have a view on some of the options there. So thank you for raising that, Mr. Cade, but I think that's the answer to that point, and I think that will be the feedback to Cabinet as well. I think we'll go on, John, final word then, please.
Sorry, Chair. Again, just to draw members' attention to recommendations 4 and 5 that talk about an advisory group to oversee the action plan and then further report back to Cabinet, certainly by March. So, yes, to be specific on that point, this is very much about members having the ownership and the oversight of the work we're doing and the progress we're making. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, it would be potentially good to see the terms of reference, the remit, and how it interacts with like ourselves, regulatory and other areas as well. So I think that would be reasonable. Right, members happy with that? Right, the next item is Indigo. Mr. Cad, thank you for bearing with us, and I'm glad you've managed to keep us there.
No problem. Thanks, Chair. Right, then, straight into Indigo. I think, as most members will be aware, Indigo is a transport system for moving people from the more rural areas of our district, and for people who have mobility challenges and access to bus service challenges into, well, to a variety of destinations for shopping, medical appointments, social appointments, that type of thing. We committed to return to the Cabinet with a review of the service that we commissioned through the County Council about 12 months ago, and this report is effectively that review and our subsequent recommendations. So to inform the report and create the baseline, if you like, for our recommendations, we have a record of feedback from customers using the services. We analysed a number of data points around utilisation, and we undertook a customer survey and had 127, I think, responses from users of the Ubus service, not Ubus, Indigo service. I think it would be fair to say that the feedback was mixed. There was a lot of positive commentary around the number 6 bus that travels from Tiddington through the town to the sort of principal shopping centres, Maybird, that type of thing, and then to Saffron Meadow. So a lot of people were very appreciative of that new scheduled service. But around the Indigo service, I think a lot of users have found engagement with the booking system quite a challenge in getting the journey at the time they want, on the day they want, more difficult than they previously experienced. And, you know, we've done some analysis around that, and I'll have a little say about that in a minute. In terms of the utilisation levels, utilisation was about, and this is both a number 6 and the Indigo service, so the combination of the two replacements for the previous U-bus service, utilisation started at around 60% of the typical U-bus and has crept up to around 90% of the preceding year's U-bus journeys. So I think a positive direction of travel there. Some teething problems as people got used to the new system. And the customer survey, I think that pulled out some difficulties around using the new booking centre. So we switched our booking centre provider. We now use, or the county use their lift and go service that is a contract tendered by the county council. And some challenges around using the app, which is not mandatory, but some people can use the app if they so choose. So, having undertaken this review and having established what we felt our community's experience was of this, we met with the county council, we relayed these points to them. We sought improvements in utilisations. We reminded them of their contractual obligations to meet and exceed the U-bus, utilisation figures. And I'm assured by that meeting and a subsequent meeting that the county council and their booking centre provider, Lift and Go, are kind of willing to work with us on flexing the service, learning from the types of activity that we've undertaken, and consequently the recommendations are, as you will see, to remain engaged with this model and extend the contract for a further 12 months to ensure that we keep the county and their booking centre provider focused on squeezing the most out of this system.
Right. Councillor Rolfe, please.
Thanks, Nick, and good report. Yes, I've had one or two people complain about the booking system, and there's a lot of people of a certain age that really don't want an app. But how do we pay anything towards the Lift and Go service that county provide, or do they solely provide it?
Well, unlike the previous system, U-bus, we funded the Vectari booking centre and had a very close relationship with the booking centre. So unlike that system, we now fund the county council and they use their established and existing booking centre provider, which is Lift and Go.
Right, any other questions? I've got a couple. Questions and comments. Recommendation number 3, yeah, totally endorse that, to scrutinise the delivery of the revised service, because if providers are not going to be scrutinised, then potentially they might become blasé and not offer the service that one. So totally endorse that one. And again, commend officers for their work collaboratively, that they've been able to maintain sort of like a near identical service at a reasonable cost, especially in times of inflation, because I know that bus service providers have been suffering significant inflation in terms of staffing, in terms of petrol, in terms of repairs, etc. So again, I think from scrutiny point of view, we would like to commend the work done by officers on that, and I'm getting some nods from members who are here still. So I think that is really supportive. We would seek, to when you are doing the scrutiny, that you either come back or send a report that we consider, not necessarily you have to come back, bearing in mind you've been here a good while this morning and this afternoon, so I'm more than happy that we have that. So I think that's really positive. Councillor Rolfe, please.
I just wanted to say that my residents in Tiddington really are very happy with this new service. Thank you. So thank you.
Any other comments? I think yeah, whilst I apologise you have to sit here this long, I think the comments we're getting back are wholly supportive and thankful and the efforts of the officers. And I think on behalf of the residents, as Councillor Rolfe said in Tiddington, I think, again, that feedback does need to be acknowledged. And also the fact that we would like to continue to scrutinise this because we are dealing with particularly vulnerable members of our society who, as councillors, we should be doing our utmost for. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that for other members of society, but in particular, the vulnerable members of society who do need this help and support. So thank you for that. I almost sounded quite intelligent there, so almost. So thank you for that, Nick. And again, thanks again to the team all involved. Thank you. So the next item is the Fred Winter Centre. And again, that is on page, bear with me, 131, you say. Thank you, Councillor Rolfe, to do with the Fred Winter Centre. Any...
I think we've got Nick for this one as well. Yes.
Well done, Nick.
Double act.
Double act. Buy one, get one free. This is what I like to see. Value for money. Nick, you're going to come in on that, and then obviously Councillor Cock can open the baton on this one.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, so this report is a very straightforward report. It seeks to assert our willingness to be party to some Section 106 negotiations that relate to the Fred Winter Centre and that have been sought by Spring Housing to enable a more sustainable financial environment in terms of the running of the Fred Winter Centre to be created. Very briefly, there's an approximately £360,000 funding gap between the income that the centre currently receives and its costs, primarily due to utilities increases and the cost of 24-hour staffing, 24/7, 365 staffing presence. And I would suggest also a loss of the restaurant income, and some of you will be familiar that as originally established, there was a lease to a restaurant space in the centre. So the solution, in short, is to increase the rent and reduce the security of tenure of the residents there, and to fund that through increased housing benefit contribution. The advantages of this, obviously, the higher the rental income, the greater income you have. And there is a kind of supplementary benefit around improved housing management as a result of the lesser sense of security that residents have, and probably a greater compliance with the requirements of residents there. The disadvantage is higher rents and diminished security of tenure, although there are mitigations on the higher rents. And I think, on balance, I would be in favour of a diminished security of tenure for management purposes. No impact on SDC because the benefit that funds this accommodation is wholly recoverable. And as I say, the report just seeks to sort of authorise officers' involvement in renegotiation of the Section 106. I'll leave it there.
I've got Councillor Alcock and then Councillor Wally Hoggins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I read this. I think I cannot be the only councillor who has concerns over the model and how Fred Winter is working or not working at this time. I understand that currently they're not asking for additional funding. However, I have that niggling feeling in my head that this is just the start of before they do come to ask for additional funding. Ultimately, in Stratford-on-Avon, we still have people sleeping on the streets. I was in Stratford yesterday afternoon, and there was somebody lying outside Poundland, wrapped in a sleeping bag with provisions around them. And that concerns me because, in my mind, that was always a main focus of what the Fred Winter Centre were going to help prevent. I think with the amount that this council has contributed to the Fred Winter Centre, is it possible to please invite the head of Spring Housing to come to Overview and Scrutiny so we can ask questions directly and to properly scrutinise this whole thing, the whole situation that's there. I think we've got some questions we need answers to, and I think they're the person to answer them, please.
Yeah, I've got no problems with what Councillor Alcott. I think it's a fair one. Just referring back to the scrutiny committee, scrutiny protocol, I can't remember which part it is, might be 4.7. We can invite and ask outside organisations to come, but we can't mandate them to come. So, but yeah, it's fair and reasonable to do. You know, the protocol, we can ask officers and councillors to come who work for the district council. External organisations, they may say no, and we've got limited way to pay it. But I take on your point. I'm more than happy to, and I think from the sounds of it, it's a unanimous agreement with that decision. But I'm just tempering that they might not come. We would hope they would come. I'm sure officers would be able to put some pressure on in the spirit of openness and transparency. So I was just tempering that, but I think it's a reasonable, very good idea. So I think that once we got a received notification that the person was like to be coming in, I think in the way we've helped in the past, where we submitted questions. So if once we got notification they would come in, I think it would be extremely pertinent that we submit as many questions in advance as possible, like we do in most things. So I think that would be good. So if we can have that on our radar and make a note of that, and once we've got agreement that'll come in, we can get that on the agenda as soon as possible. Right, I've put myself off on it. I think it's Councillor Wally Hoggins next.
Just advise me, Nick, thank you for this report, but the Fred Winter Centre is a stepping stone, isn't it? It's not a permanent housing solution for their residents. That is the case, isn't it? Before I ask my next questions.
Yes. It is not a short stay setting, though. It's not a matter of weeks or you know, it's not like our temporary accommodation. It is something that people can move into for a period of, I would suggest, up to 2 years while they develop the skills to be able to manage a tenancy independently. So that's the context.
So my next question, my next comment then really is then yes, of course, we need to be charging, you know, a reasonable rent to these residents, because they'll be expected to pay a reasonable rent and for utilities later on. And I think that this is, I'm somewhat flabbergasted that they're not having to contribute towards this from the get-go. How much are people paying to live there at the moment from their benefits? That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, the rents at the moment are around about what a social rent would be for a one-bed. They're all one-bedroom flats. I would suggest, I don't know off the top of my head, but we'd be talking in the region of £100 to £150 a week. The rent as, and I haven't seen, bear in mind, I haven't seen a worked example of their suggestion. They would need to do that for any housing benefit claim that was subsequent to the Section 106 being agreed by all parties, etc., etc., etc. So some way off, I think you'll see in the report, it's suggested from the 1st of April 2026. But supported housing schemes where you fund both the rent of the room and the cost of the support are significantly higher than £150 a week. So it would probably be in the region of £200 to £300 a week, because what you've got to buy as well as the accommodation is all the staff hours, and the overheads that go into providing the support alongside the accommodation. I hope that's clear.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Rolfe next and Councillor.
Thank you. I've got two questions, really. Firstly, how much money does this council give annually to the Fred Winter Centre? And secondly, this shortfall of £361,000, is it just for this year, or has it been building up since time began at the Fred Winter Centre? Because it's one hell of a shortfall. And by doing what they're planning to do, are they really going to meet that shortfall? And is that shortfall just going to get bigger next year and the year after? Thank you.
Okay. In response to the first question, we have a contract with Spring Housing to contribute towards the cost of the support provision and the running of the centre. That is a £60,000 annual contribution. In terms of the 361,000 shortfall, as the scheme was established when it was built and conceived, Spring Housing made a significant contribution to the shortfall. I can't be exact with you about the figures, but that's how it was established. Now, that shortfall has obviously been sustainable by the organisation for some years. I think what we're experiencing now is a point at which it has become unsustainable, and I've cited in the report some of the reasons for that. Utility increases, the cost of 24/7, 365 staffing. But I wouldn't say it's a surprise because there's always been this shortfall that Spring have contributed to themselves, and I've cited in previous reports, I think that I've written about the Fred Winter Centre, that they have made a generous contribution to the district. However, circumstances have clearly changed. Costs have clearly escalated over the last couple of years, and they see a more sustainable path with a different tenure and the ability, therefore, to charge a higher level of rent, which they're hoping will close the gap, if not eradicate the gap.
I just have a very quick follow-up. Do you see any kind of comeback on that? Do you see any of those current residents saying, right, I'm not paying anymore, I'm off? There is going to be some comeback, isn't there?
I think, and given the profile of the residents, I would suspect that as long as the transition is managed sensitively, because the rent is funded through housing benefit, it isn't a cost, rent is liable from the tenant, but then that is kind of liability is picked up by the state through housing benefits, so there will be a greater contribution required from the state to support those tenancies. Where there's possibly some challenges is somebody's moving towards employment or part-time employment, and we're fortunate to have Spring as a partner in this respect, because Spring actually have a sort of sinking fund that they can use to offset the high level of rent and the reductions in housing benefits associated with employment, so they can kind of balance it out to create a not quite as a challenging situation for somebody who's paying the rent, because they've got this kind of sinking fund that they use to contribute towards residence rents if they do manage to get themselves a job, whether that be part-time, and sort of work their way towards full-time employment. So I think, as I said before, I think they are working to mitigate any impact like that on their residents. So I think it has the potential to be a well-managed, migration, really.
Councillor Littlewood, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one point, if I may, please. You talk under section 11.2 financials that there is a significant, if we cease support and therefore the residents were effectively back out on the street or having to fend for themselves in some way, there's a significant cost, a significant impact, I think is what you're saying, to SDC. Could you just describe what that significant impact is in quantitative terms?
Yeah, I can. Say we well, let's start from the start. This unit accommodates some of the most challenged and difficult people to accommodate that live in the district. There's no doubt about that, and I've got some figures from them around the number of successes they have. Not everything is successful, but they have a decent track record on converting residencies there to ongoing sustainable tenancies. If it closed and we didn't have an alternative, then a lot of the people who live there would be faced with two possible outcomes, really. One, they would kind of return to the streets and require management, if you like, in terms of living in front of shops or being in other ways itinerant, or they would be accommodated by our service in temporary accommodation and bed and breakfast. If they went into bed and breakfast, then the cost implications for us, because the way bed and breakfast is funded through the benefit system, means that not all the funding that you spend on the bed and breakfast placement is recoverable in the same way that the rents are recoverable in the Fred Winter Centre. So it's kind of financially advantageous to us in those terms to accommodate people in a scheme where you can recover the housing benefit from central government than it is to accommodate them in a bed and breakfast or similar setting where the recovery rates aren't 100% of what we spend on that model. Does that sort of cover it?
Yes, that's the concept. I just wondered if you'd actually got the numbers to support it. The worst case is that everybody goes on the street and everybody goes into bed and breakfast, for example.
Well, Lucy's basic maths. We're unlikely to get a room for £50 a night, but let's say we can, because it's easier to add up 50s than it is 67s. So you've got 13 people. Multiply that 50 by 50. That's a nightly rate. So whatever that is, that's 650. So £650 a night per person for the duration of their staying seven nights a week, and that would be a bargain rate. It really would. We're probably paying more like £75 a night nowadays.
So if my mental arithmetic is correct, then that's considerably more than the 60,000 that we're talking about per annum.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we pursued this model several years ago, because there are many good reasons to do it, but one of the good reasons to do it is it's cost effective.
Yeah, I think we'll probably bring it to a close now. I've just got 1 point in 2.7. Whilst I accept the utility costs, gas and electric increasing by 250 and 160% for both of those, I just thought there might have been some contact from them before. If they are having individuals with greater levels of need, I would assume that was likely to form additional cost than the original business plan. So I was surprised that perhaps the communication wasn't brought forward earlier, because I assume the cost with greater need has individuals with greater needs usually have some form of greater expense with them. I just wondered why that wasn't really raised before.
Well, I think it's been a known before, because it's always been clear in their in their budgeting, and I've sat down with Spring on occasions and had that very conversation with them. What are our plans? For the ongoing sustainability of the Fred Winter Centre? Well, we've now got to the stage where there is a plan, and this is the plan. I think the pressures that are exerted by the cost of the staffing and the additional pressures that are exerted as a result of the increasing utilities have just brought that, and possibly other pressures in Spring, maybe, where they may be experiencing similar pressures in other schemes, have just brought this kind of whole situation to a head. And that's why Spring are now looking for an alternative funding model that creates a more sustainable financial, budgetary situation.
In effect, really, the inflation increases in gas and electric, and in terms of employing staff, is really brought this to a head to try and make it more sustainable or provide a longer-term solution. In effect, this is the whole hub of this report.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'd like to see chair's correct again. Good job you're all sitting there. I think we can bring it to a close. I think we've I think we've got a recommendation that we ask a senior CEO from Spring to come to this committee for an in-depth analysis discussion on the subject, and subject to that being approved, prior to that we ask supply some questions to that person as well. And again, thank Nick and the team for providing the update, comprehensive. There was one word in 4.7, now I've asked to ask my legal officer on my right-hand side, novate. It turns out it means replace with a new contract. So if they could put something simple words in, like in, rather than the only thing I could think with novating was renovate. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think we'll draw that one to a close. Thanks, Nick. All right then, item 11, work programme. We've got one future item on the work programme which relates to the Fred Winter Centre, which I'm sure the officers will be able to think. Councillor Hencher-Seraphin, then Councillor Wally Hoggins, please.
Yeah. Can we have enforcement here at the next meeting to update us? And
unfortunately, whilst I would love to see enforcement come to this committee, it goes to regulatory. It doesn't come to this one, I'm afraid.
Okay. Why is that?
It's the function of regulatory, I'm afraid. It's statutory. I sometimes share your frustrations as well, and I would love them to come here, but if Mesa says they've got to go to regulatory, they've got to go to regulatory.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wally Hoggins, please.
We had some training last week to do with social housing, and I think it would be really useful because there's talk of updating their system. If they could come and talk to us about the work that they do, how the intention is to change the system, if you like, the money that's going to be spent on that. It's not an insignificant amount of money. I'm sorry, I'm very tired after this meeting now, but that is, in essence, so for example, we discovered that people are bidding on houses currently in two very different areas to where we live at the moment, which is Bromsgrove and I want to say the Wye Valley, but that's it, Wye Forest. I'm concerned that we're about to spend some money on this and then we're going through devolution very soon. That's been pointed out to us today. And is this a waste of time and money until we know exactly where we're going with this, working with partners? So that's why, and also the staggering, the lack of, I'm not sure if it goes to, is that going to, it's not that, it's the underperformance, but I'm not sure if regulatory covers it or not, but it's a staggering underperformance that they've got. So it may be that regulatory have got to do a better job of holding them to account, but there is some money involved now in what they're proposing to do.
Can I just clarify, is it the Home Choice Plus report that you were looking about, and then so the housing list and stuff? So it's how about so just trying to make sure we were giving you the right thing and we don't bring the wrong thing.
We've got that on the 4th of March.
I do think, actually, if you don't mind me saying, Chair, that perhaps Home Choice Plus needs to come to us sooner rather than as late as that. Malcolm, you had some views on it as well, I believe.
I know that it was linked in with a couple of things, and it was to do with setting up the system, give the system time to bed in. So I think that was why it was put back to March. Can we liaise?
The whole system, it's the system that's bothering me. It's the implementation of something that we're probably going to have to reinvent again. I know we're all tired, but it does matter. It's some of our most vulnerable residents, I think. Sorry.
I think, well, again, yes, I think Hannah is, I've looked at the, Hannah is coming in November, and she's coming in January and in March on different things. I think if we can speak with the officers beforehand to see if you could let us have your concerns potentially in writing, Councillor Wally-Hoggins, so just so we've got some clarity, and then Mr. Perch can speak to the lead officer, and then we can find an appropriate time if we can bring that item forward. We will do, because I would note in your concerns about the timescales and things like that. So I think, I'll do that. Yeah, Councillor Littlewood, please.
Yeah, if I could just endorse what was said. The question here isn't about Home Choice Plus, it's about the investment at this time in respect to reorganisation, and that's really the issue here. So whether it's Hannah that comes here or not, I do think that we ought to address it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Right, we've got those concerns all noted. Happy with that. Item 12, urgent business.
There is none.
There is none. And I'll close this meeting at 2 p.m. Thank you.